Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the B Leaguers podcast. My name is Stokes, and as always, I'm joined by the beautiful Flynn. Flynn, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing right fucking good, bud.
Right, fucking good. How's Canada treating you?
Canada's good. Yeah, shit, it's been, what, a month since the last episode?
Month since the last episode.
A
Yep, a
month
little bit
since the
over a
last
month.
episode. So if anyone's
And
unaware,
the last one was called "Consistently Inconsistent" too. So
hey, we live up to our fucking name out here. No one's gonna be thinking we don't live up to our name anyway. So yeah, I'm in Montreal right now for the Canadian Nationals. I've been here for a couple weeks now. Right after Valencia, I flew in. So we're at a team house, but it's a casting house instead of a team house. So that's why my mic sounds not great. But yeah, Canadian Nationals are interesting. There's a little bit better competition this year, slightly better. The format is better so that we don't have to see some of the poorer teams on broadcast every week, which is nice. Outside of that, that's basically my life right now. Is living in Montreal, having some fun, hanging out with some new peeps. I'm casting with Corn Pop and Hunter Cash, so new casters, new faces, getting to learn some new people styles, getting to cast with some younger talent that I think really have a lot of potential in the scene, and I'm hopeful. I think the project's been going pretty well so far. I really like the studio and the production crew that we have.
yeah, I think it's definitely been interesting. I've been able to catch a couple of the broadcasts, just tuning in every once in a while and see what's going on. But for me, I'm still doing USN. I'm done with stage 2. I'm going home this Wednesday. Wednesday morning is when I fly home, and I don't get in until like 10:50 at night. So, and then I'm back in NA for almost 2 months. So, should
Wow.
be, yeah.
Fuck
Schengen's
you.
fun. Schengen's fun, Flynn.
I only get to be home for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it happens, dude. It happens. But events going on in between that as well. We just got off of an event, and we don't even know yet if we're going to be at Raleigh just yet. But Valencia, you and I just got done with, which was interesting. We both got to cast with a newer face that neither of us got to cast with just yet. But I think he grew to be, a good friend while we were there, and that's Does It You. Very interesting guy.
Dez is amazing. I really hope
Yeah.
we can get Dez into a couple more broadcasts. He was a lot of fun. He's a fun guy to hang out with behind the scenes, and I thought he did pretty damn well on the broadcast as well.
He did a fuck of a lot better than I did, dude. I couldn't hear shit. Like I was talking like an idiot like every day. I was so mad, but yeah.
Yeah, DreamHack was fun. The fire alarms were fun. I guess we'll talk about that a little bit
Oh my
later.
god.
Fire alarms. I'm sure everyone's curious why the podcast stopped. So let's dive into that real quick. Let's spend 5 or 10 minutes on life and mentality and fame and all that bullshit. All right. So just for the record, for anyone who was curious, Stokes never wanted to stop the podcast. He's always on my ass every week. Let's do the podcast. Let's do the podcast. Let's do the podcast.
I'm the annoying brother. That's what I
Yeah, he's the good business manager on the side of this, and I'm the lazy fuckhead who also really needed to work his shit out regarding everything, not just regarding the podcast. So, I don't know. It kind of happened while I was in Poland. Basically, I really wanted just a break from everything. I was streaming a lot in Poland. I was working every Pro League show for the last month. Then we went straight to Milan and back home. And Poland's okay. Like, I was hanging out with you guys basically every night, which was good. I was just at a really low point mentally. I really wasn't feeling good about anything. Things started to get like really fucking smothering, honestly. Like every day I open up Twitter, I open up Reddit, and it's another fucking conversation about something we said, or I don't know, just about me in general, and it gets to you after a while. Just being thrown into the spotlight so quickly and so harshly, be dropped into the deep end, basically with no safety net. It wasn't the easiest thing to go through. So those 3 months in Poland were they were difficult. So when I got back, I really just I wanted to be back home, back in familiar territory with my family. I wanted to spend time with my family and just kind of take a break from everything. I stopped streaming as soon as I got back. I basically told Stokes to go fuck himself every weekend whenever he brought up the podcast, just because it was weighing on me, man. Like it was a lot of voices coming at you nonstop, just 24/7, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. You know, if I'm watching one of my friends' Twitch streams and I'm talking in the chat, you know, there's 25 people adding you going, hey, I hate your casting. I like your casting. Do the podcast. Stop the podcast. You're an idiot. I like you. It's like every single fucking voice in the entire community is just screaming at you for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. And it felt like there was no break from that. So I really wanted to just kind of step away from everything for a minute, just limit my exposure to as much as possible. Just kind of get like a mental reset, man, because it was fun. Don't get me wrong. I was in a very privileged position to be able to go to Poland and cast Pro League, but you know, you kind of got to put on a tough face and go out there every day and face the music no matter what, and that's part of the job. That's never going to go away. I just needed to handle it in my own way, and doing the podcast every week where, you know, it just opens up more opportunity for people to yell and scream random shit. It wasn't helpful, so I really wanted to step away, but I think being back in Canada really helps. Just being back home, getting to see my family. Like, I hadn't seen my sister in like 4 months, and I only got to see her for like a week while I was back home. She was off at camp and school and stuff, so I got to hang out with her, got to take her out for her birthday and, you know, just catch up with her. I don't know, just being away from family for that long when they've been such a huge part of your life for your entire life, it's a shock to the system. It's a shock to how you live your everyday life, and I didn't handle it all that well. So hopefully now that I've been through that and we're back underway, I'm back in Montreal now for the Canadian Nationals, and I'll be back home for a bit. I'm going to my cousin's wedding right after this stage is done. I think everything should be better. It was getting overwhelming. So if anyone was curious why the podcast stopped, it was all me. And it was me just trying to fucking handle my shit the best way I could.
Yeah, I think
there's no
Oh, wait, hey. Hold on. Wait, who's that?
Who the fuck is that?
Who?
Hello.
Huh?
Hi.
Wait. Is this Parker Mackay?
Sorry, I need a moment as I lose my B-Leaguers podcast virginity. Ooh.
Everyone, I think you know him. He's the Canadian on the Pro League desk. Everyone loves him. The thick eye wearing, looks like something out of Star Wars with his turtlenecks. We all love him. It's Mr. Parker Intero Mackay.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I really like what Rob was talking about there, because this was something that I kind of experienced as well, but I think I had it in a bit of a different way than Rob did, because it was like my lead up to coming out here to Pro League to cast was a little bit different. I mean, this was the Wild West of Pro League at the time. You know, it was very underdeveloped. There'd only been 5 casters, you know, at that point that had actually casted, or 6 casters that had ever casted an actual Pro League match. And, you know, 3 of them had really not worked like all that much. Or at least 2 of them, maybe 3 of them. But it was just like, I didn't really know what to expect. You know, I'd never been to Europe before. I'd been to Canada. I'd been to, you know, North America. Like, I'd been all around America. I'd been all around Canada, but I'd never actually been to Europe before. And it's like, when a lot of people think of Europe, they think of the Western part of Europe. They don't really think of Poland. They don't really think of, you know, countries like that. And the thing with Poland is there are parts of the country that are pretty easy for a Westerner to adjust to. Katowice is not quite there yet, I would say. You know, it's a smaller city. Yeah, it's in a region with a couple million people, but by and large, the actual region itself is, you know, it's very Polish. And I know that sounds silly, but it's like, you can go to Paris and get around just fine with English. You can go to most major cities in Germany and do the same. You know, major cities in Spain, you can do the same. Like, yeah, you'll have hiccups. And there's touristy parts of Poland too, where you can do that. Like if you go to Krakow or Warsaw or Gdańsk, etc. But there's no guide for when you land in Poland. And it's like you're landing in a city where I know Flynn and I both come from Toronto or the Toronto region. And because of this, it's like we're used to living in a massive city that where everything is open 24, or most things are open 24 hours. Enough things are open 24 hours where you don't have to sweat it. You can get around in lots of different languages. You know, it's a very different vibe and a very different feeling. And you land in Katowice and it's like the infrastructure for you as a human is very limited. You're often awake at night and there's nothing to do. You know, there's clubs where like most of the people don't speak English. You know, there's no 24-hour grocery stores. You know, there's just it's not very convenient for our schedule. And I was the same way. You know, when I first stepped down here, I was only here for about a month and a week. I landed like I think it was like September 25th, and I left like November 3rd or November 4th or something like that. And I didn't have access to a computer. I had a laptop that they gave me that I couldn't play like any games on except for Stardew Valley. And it was like I was staying in like this short-term living accommodation that was on like Wi-Fi internet that like kept going out. And I didn't know anybody. And the only other casters out here were, you know, Emzo, Bloodbath, and Kix. And it wasn't exactly the most cordial time. So it's not like we're all going out. And it's very lonely. It's very, very lonely. It's the hardest part of the job, in my opinion. The hardest part of being in Katowice and working as a pro league caster is the isolation, the social aspect, and the feeling of comfort and belonging. Because I've been here almost 2 years. Polish is a brutally hard language to learn. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't necessarily tried to learn it as well as I could. But I just, while parts of Katowice feel like really comfortable, it still doesn't feel like home, even though I've been here for almost 2 years now. And I totally understand where you're coming from, Rob. And there's no proper support network to help. And we're all lucky now because like the USN crew is out here and there's more casters than there ever has been. But when I was here, you know, it was like Bloodbath was gone for like half the time and then Emzo was gone. And like, you know, Kix and I didn't really know each other. So it was just like, what did I do? I stayed at home for basically a month and a half. And it was really, really taxing.
Yeah, you know, like sorry, it weighs on you, and you're not supposed to bitch about it. You're not supposed to complain about it because this is a dream job for basically everyone. And I'm not going to dispute that it was a dream job. It had its negative aspects, and they weighed on me mentally. The isolation, like you said, you know, the USN casters are out there. Thank the fucking Lord, because we didn't have them. Holy shit, just be us going out every night. Yeah, it was a fun time, but it was a tough time, and it's a lesson well learned. But I think I'm back to normal now that I'm back in Canada.
Yeah, man. I mean, it really is just a really hard thing. I mean, even for like me, like the last time I was out here, I haven't been out here as long as the stretch that obviously you or Parker were out here for time. Whereas I got to go home for a little bit and everything else. But even with that, dude, like it's still really, really tough. Like as Parker said, like everything is closed on Sunday. You can't go out. Like I can't wake up because most of the times, as you guys know, the USN broadcast start at 8 o'clock Eastern, just like NA for Pro League.
2 a.m. baby. Woo!
So that's 2 a.m. for us. So and Flynn knows this because I used to text him when I woke up to see like what was going on. I wake up at 12 p.m. or at midnight. So 12 a.m. Excuse me. So I wake up at midnight. There's nothing open. I can't run to McDonald's. I can't do anything. I have to make food in my kitchen, get ready for work, go to work. We get off a shift. God, I'm sounding like I'm working in a factory, but we get off of broadcast at around, what would you say, Flynn? Like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And then there's still nothing open. There's still like, there's no breakfast places, nothing. So you're off of broadcast. You're hungry as shit. You got to go home, make your food, and then you go to bed at like 2 p.m. And it's just a constant cycle. And it, as Flynn said it and Parker said, it wears on you because all you have every day is just, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to go do broadcast. I'm going to go home. I'm going to make a sandwich. I'm going to play video games all day. And you just repeat until you go fucking crazy. And like, luckily enough, like, I don't know. I've always been more of an independent person. So like I am okay with this sometimes, but it still sucks. Like when Flynn and Parker are gone and Veli and Blue are gone, and there's just no one to go out with, because most of the time, like as you guys know, Kix is streaming, Emzo is usually doing his own thing, and Milos travels a lot to go see his girlfriend. So it's just like I go out, I get sushi by myself so that I can get out of my apartment. I run, I work out, I do that kind of stuff, because if I don't, it's just I'm either sitting at my desk playing Rainbow Six Siege by myself because the timing's weird for my friends in North America, or I'm laying in bed watching Naruto. That's literally it. Like there's nothing else that I do. And everything around here closes at 10. Not a lot of people speak English because like there's Mariaska Street in Katowice, and it's actually a really nice place. We went down there quite a few times, but even then, like a lot of the younger crowd doesn't speak English extremely well. So it's not like you can go down, like grab a drink and just have like a conversation with a random stranger. It's not going to happen. So it's again, it's just part of the job, but it's a really, really difficult thing.
I mean, there's a reason why I go home as frequently as I do, and it's because I take it as an opportunity to like mentally recharge and see family, see friends, and put myself, in a place where I feel I don't know, like I'm a part of like a living, breathing world. Like esports is already like an isolating job because a lot of people don't really understand it. You have to travel a lot. You're working at different hours. You're often working when people aren't, very similar to like when you're, if you're a server or something along those lines, or even like a traditional news anchor, etc. But just the bigger issue is that it's like when we're on breaks here, it's tough. You're absolutely right. Like people leave. The other day, everybody was going to DreamHack Valencia. There were a lot of people gone. The only people who were still, I believe, in Poland at the time was Kix and like the behind the scenes production staff. And it's not like I wouldn't want to hang out with Kix one-on-one, but it's like if I'm looking at, 12 days of what am I going to do? I'm not going to hang out with Kix every single day. I could stream every single day, or I could go home and I could stream from home and I could see family and friends and stuff like that. And that's been a big saving grace for me, is the ability to go back. It's not cheap. It's certainly not cheap having to fly from Toronto to, Katowice, but it's a price I pay because it puts me in a better headspace. And this schedule that we've had recently has been fun from the perspective that it's like the games are so condensed. It's been really enjoyable to see this much pro league in such a short period of time. But I will say this has been the worst that my sleep schedule has been since I've been out here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to balance it by streaming. I'm trying to balance it out by, taking as much like personal time as possible, not just lying in my bed and reading on my phone. And I find it's like almost every day I wake up, it's just like my brain is like locked behind this fog because we're casting different regions and different days. You're awake at certain times. You always want to be on a normal EU schedule for the weekend, which means destroying yourself if you have to cast NA on Monday, because you have to stay up all night and just completely reset a sleep schedule, which means almost once a week, if I want to have a proper social life on the weekend and be awake like, 8 a.m. till, 10 p.m., which I like to be awake during daylight hours. That means that on Sunday evening, you don't go to bed at 10. You have to stay awake until like noon, at which point you've been awake for over 24 hours at this point, and then crash and wake up in time to go and cast NA Pro League that night. Or it means sacrificing your sleep schedule and social life on that weekend. And it's not easy. It also sucks just being like such a long distance from my family. My parents are in their 60s. Like I like being near my family. My grandfather's old. I don't like that if I need to go home, it's going to take so long to get home. But Flynn put it correctly. Like this is the dream. And it's like, these are in the grand scheme of things, like pretty minor complaints, I think, because we work an awesome job and we get such an amazing opportunity that if these are the only downsides that we really have to wrestle with, like I take that trade every day.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the thing is, yeah, like we do get to work a dream job and we get to work it with an amazing group of people. Like we have some people that honestly, like I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life. It's something that's definitely made me grow up quite a bit. Like I was just working at a factory with my dad, and then all of a sudden I'm flying to Poland. Like I'd already casted a few lands and stuff, but it's a whole different experience after actually going like full bore into something, going all I do is esports. That's what pays my bills. That's what every dollar, every dime that I spend is made from me doing something in the public eye. And I mean, even that like sometimes gets difficult. I think that's something that also Flynn was talking about, where, you know, it gets hard to where you really start looking at yourself under the magnifying glass a little bit too much. And it really starts to mess with your headspace. And that's kind of like what personally happened with me at Valencia. And it actually trailed a little bit into USN like the following day on our Tuesday episode the following week. It's hard because like, especially when you see so much stuff and you're like trying so hard to improve, and then all of a sudden you just start scrutinizing yourself just a little bit too much and things start to falter off, and it sucks, man. It really, really sucks. But I would not trade this job for the world. It's amazing, man. It really, really is. Like, for all of like the bad parts, the highs are way higher than the lows are low. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So, all right, let's stop talking about depressing stuff and
let's
get into some freaking games, guys. I know that's what you guys want to hear about. This is, by the way, this is a massive surprise that Parker is on the episode. We kind of wanted to surprise you guys with something for the return, so I asked Parker very kindly if he would join us for the evening. So, once again, thank you, Mr. Parker McKay. But all right. So let's jump into PL and all regions. Flynn, you're always the host. You always have the best questions and best everything to set up. So I'll let you take the floor.
All right. I mean, we're all North American casters. We're all from NA. Might as well start with NA. The first split's done, and I think there's a lot of results so far. I don't want to go game by game because that would take fucking forever. But I think there's a lot of results and a lot of teams so far that have been surprising, that have had better results outside of Pro League, cough, TSM, cough, that really bring to question
best of one format.
Well, I mean, best of one format, or are you a BO1 team? You know, Bio took to Twitter right after they qualified for the major last night to say, yeah, we're not just a BO3 team. We just have confidence issues on Pro League play days. And that's fair. I mean, there's a little more leeway. You have a little more time to kind of recuperate and get yourself back into your normal play style in a BO3. It doesn't feel as nerve-wracking. And I'm going to use the example of us playing against Luminosity, cough on Parker's channel, where we just got fucking dumpstered. Where you just kind of feel like you have a bit of a backbone. You know, Coast didn't go super great for us, but the whole time we were thinking, you know, if we get to border, we'll be fine. As long as we get to border. You know, there's this other hurdle that you can get to later on, and that's in all BO3s. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Even if things aren't going perfectly on your first map, you know you've got two more where you can pull it out and change the entire pace of the game and change the storyline of the game. And really put yourself in a better spot to honestly just pull something out, because fuck, man, some BO3s, you know, there's teams that historically for a very long time, like EG was a team for a very long time that would almost lose the first map in a BO3 every single fucking time, but they were one of the best teams at regrouping in BO3s and getting back on track, that they won a majority of those games where they lost the first map. And I feel bad for TSM just because they are such a damn good team, and I had a lot of faith in TSM heading into the season. They were one of my picks as surprise upsets every single week in the CGG predictions, and let's just say that didn't fucking work out.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, that didn't really work out. But I think the format is, for this season as well, is also taxing for the players, simply because you're almost in like a challenger league mindset where you don't have a full week to prep for a certain team, so you're focused on yourself more than anything. You're focused on your play, your maps, your structure, your strats, your clears. Like, it's such a self-introspective look on how to evolve as a team versus being able to pick apart another team when you had, you know, a full week, or back in the old format, you had 2 weeks to prep for one best of three. In the format we had for the last year, you've been able to prep for a whole week for one best of one, so you've been in a better capability, at least, of being able to counter-strat a team, rip apart their VODs, rip apart their maps, and really dive deep on what you think a team is going to do against you. And in this setup, teams now have to look on themselves only, because you just don't have the time really to prep all maps that you think a team is going to bring against you. And I think it's been hurting a couple teams.
Do you think that it's particularly helped out Luminosity because of their style of play?
I'd agree with that to a point. I think Luminosity was a surprise in general, just being so good at hanging with the best of the best inside of Pro League. Honestly, heading into the season, I didn't give them much credit, and I don't think there's a lot of people out there who really saw them going too far, and yet they stand at 4th right now. So, breaking expectations is that team's fucking mantra. They love to be the underdog.
They remind a lot of people that Noble was the main comparison that was pointed out a lot.
Yeah.
It was 2 seasons ago or whatever, or it could have been last season. I can't even remember the exact season.
Season 8. It was season 8.
Yeah, so it was 2 seasons ago where Noble started off really strong, had 2 great games. I think they sat first with Space Station NA, and then they just plummeted, right? And they didn't actually win another match until the very final week. The thing with a team like Luminosity, and this has been pointed out a couple times on the subreddit with some of those deep dives that people have been doing. I think it's Hannibal who's been doing most of them. Really great work. The one thing that the Luminosity gaming really illuminated, pardon the pun, is how much that team lives and dies off of Rexen. And if Rexen is dead, that team is in trouble. And we saw in the qualifiers how hard you could counter them by banning, Twitch or banning Jaeger against Rexen. He, if he gets shut down, then that's it. The only real depth they have on that team is Doodle in terms of fragging power. The rest are, they're not going to like the fact that I say this, but the rest of the team are essentially, like middle of the road Pro League players. You're not going to be competing for top of NA if Rexen and Doodle are getting shut down every single game.
Yeah.
And you look at their most recent run, and they got beaten by SSG in the qualifiers last night. Even though they actually were the team that punched SSG down into the lower bracket earlier. What happened? Well, last week they lost to SSG, 4-7. They got crushed by EG 0-7. Before that, they had a good result against Rec, but LG fought their way up to the the winners bracket of like the lower bracket, or the winners final of the lower bracket. It's so confusing to say this, by the way. And I think the bigger worry for LG is that when you get teams that come through Challenger League that just have absurdly good gun skill, which I think you can say LG does, and play very aggressive, they peak a lot, they're unpredictable. It's very tough to contain them. They have a very pronounced impact at the onset of a season because there's not enough VODs on them and you don't know what the hell they're going to do. And once teams get wise to their tricks and know, okay, well, they're going to be peaking a lot. Okay, they're going to take these fights. We can be ready for them. If they don't adapt and develop the same level of cohesion and I think strength of strategy that we find with the better teams, their gun skill doesn't carry them much farther than middle of Pro League, and they tend to drift back towards the bottom. So if I'm LG, I'm not necessarily looking at making a roster change or anything like that. I don't think it's time to sound the alarm bells. As was pointed out, they're in 4th, but they're tied with EG for 3rd, and they're only a point ahead of Space Station. They have a good buffer to Rogue down in 6th, but I think that Luminosity should take the opportunity over the next couple weeks or month or so until we're back after the major and really try to refine some of their proper strategies so it doesn't just revolve around 1 or 2 people getting kills.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think this team has a ton of potential, and I think that they can contend. I don't think I would say right now they're probably not going to end up as one of the 2 relegation teams. But do I think that they're going to be a team that's going to stay in top 3 of Pro League? As of this current moment, I don't see it unless they put in a lot of work.
I agree with you on that. And I think the contrast that a lot of people are going to be thinking of right now is, okay, well, why is Reciprocity so good comparative to Luminosity? And for that, personally, I would say that Reciprocity is just, they have more veteranism inside of the scene. They understand how to play against opposing teams better, whereas Luminosity more or less just plays their game. Reciprocity has been around for a very long time, and they have long-standing players that have played against everyone inside of NA on multiple occasions. It's more or less, imagine playing against, your friends that you see every single day. That's basically what it is with Reciprocity. Like they played a lot of these members on the same rosters, blah, 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 what have you, repetitively. And I think that's where Reciprocity really stands above Luminosity in that aspect, as well as there's just quite a few things that Reciprocity is more refined in. I think that they're better with their utility choices. I think that Reciprocity just all around is just a better version of what Luminosity can possibly be. Luminosity obviously has their own image; they have their own face. We've definitely seen them be able to go toe to toe with Reciprocity, and as you said, the last time that they played, they beat them. But again, they're two peas in a pod in their play style. Just obviously, they each have their own quirks. I just think that Reciprocity outclasses them just because of that veteranism. And in a best of 3, I definitely see Reciprocity coming out on top in that. I'd love to get your guys' take on that, and as to why Reciprocity, with extremely similar play style, is in a lot of people's eyes above and beyond.
I think one of the things that we did when we knew we were going to be playing against them in the major quals is we tried to look at their map bans, we tried to look at their op bans, we tried to figure out, where do they like to play, where are they most comfortable, what are we going to be able to do with just an operator ban to throw them off, and that clearly didn't work. We tried to target ban a couple players, like Parker was saying, but we chose the wrong players to target ban, evidently. And one of our biggest problems to deal with was their adaptability. We had a couple rounds there where it was, 1v1, 1v2 in the dying seconds, and yet it does kind of come down to that adaptability. There were plenty of times where they were setting up for, one specific push on coast, and all of a sudden they're swapping back, and then they're going back to another push, and they're going back to another push, and it's difficult to read. It's a lot of momentum carrying towards one direction when you're trying to deal with it. And as an anchor player, I got to see the field a lot more than I think some of my entries did. Just because I was alive longer. thank the fucking Lord I was, at least. But just watching it and hearing the calls come out from, they're pushing VIP. 5 seconds later, they're 3 in luggage and they're overwhelming Aqua. And 5 seconds later, oh shit, there's a guy down at Blue Bar. Where the fuck did this guy come from? Well, he literally did a whole fucking lap from VIP to luggage, vaulted courtyard, and then pushed into Blue Bar. They don't stall out, man. They don't fucking stall out. They'll always find a different route instead of trying to brute force one route. And I think that's an asset for a lot of teams, because you see it, like we even saw it last night in some of the NA major qual games. Between like TSM and SSG, and the SSG and LG game, there were times where SSG would stall out on a specific push just because that was their push, and yet LG really, unless you're looking at Cafe where there's kind of just one push, there's not really much else to do. Unfortunately, they are really creative in a bind, and I think that's what really took us off guard, because we weren't expecting that. We were expecting them to play a little more normal, and I think that's what every team kind of runs into against them, which is you expect them to make one play, and yet they don't even have the play mapped out in their head. They're just going, whatever fucking works, we're going to do. And if it takes until there's 30 seconds left in the round to figure out what's going to work, then so be it. It takes that long. But that kind of spontaneity and ability to react, I really got to give props to their IGL crew, because that shit is not easy to coordinate on any team at any level. The ability to constantly swap a push or swap a defensive hold every single 30 seconds in a round, that's chaos in a bottle, and yet they seem to have that mastered. But I think also what Parker was saying is really accurate. They do have a lot of reliance on a couple players to be able to put them in favorable positions so that they don't have to swap a push in the middle of a round. And sometimes those players aren't on, and that kind of happens. Everyone looked at old Empire before everyone on the team learned how to use their thumbs, where it was joystick. It was joystick against the fucking world. Like it was him and Karzeka as a duo, bit kind of. Like Karzeka would just clean up whatever joystick fucked up, but that was old Empire. And sometimes, it was very rare when joystick wouldn't be on, but hey, if there was a moment where joystick wasn't on, the rounds kind of tailed off. And now everyone on that team seems to be able to carry their own, and they're scary as fuck. So maybe they're an old Empire look right now. They just got to figure out how to get everyone else on board and to the point where they have freedom and mobility and don't feel like, oh, okay, if Rexon's not fragging, if Doodle's not fragging, we're not going to win a round. Maybe they can get to that point, but it took almost a full season for Empire to get to that point. So I don't think it's going to happen overnight by any means.
Mr. Bakai, Do you have any words?
Not specifically about Luminosity, but just about NA in general. It's one thing for TSM to say that they're a best of 3 team, which is great, but that's not the format. And they're going to need to figure it out at some point because realistically, you know, auto relegation doesn't exist, but relegation does.
Yeah.
So you still have to fight for your spot, right? And right now, the favorites in Challenger League, I would imagine, are probably going to be like Leftovers and Disrupt will probably be the 2 teams heading in that will realistically be the 2 strongest. I mean, keep in mind that things can change. It depends on what squads get assembled in the meantime. And, you know, if there's any like super teams that come together or any teams like 92 Dream Team that are full of young gunners that just shoot up the standings. With the way that TSM has played over the qualifiers, I don't think TSM is losing a best of 3 to either of those teams, you know, and the other team that is probably earmarked for relegations, at least what we've seen so far, is the Sonics. And I also don't necessarily think the Sonics are losing a best of 3 to either of those teams, you know? So it's going to be interesting for NA. NA has always had a team come in no matter what for like the last 5 seasons or something like that. There's never been a season, I mean, barring auto relegation because a new team has to come in. Outside of that, NA's always had a lot of upheaval. And it's because NA's always been kind of weak at the bottom 2 spots in Pro League. And Challenger League has always usually had like a 1 decently strong team, while the rest of NA Challenger League was kind of, if we're being completely honest. You know,
100%.
NA Challenger League is actually getting to the point now where it's decently competitive. And even some of these squads, I don't know if Elevate broke up. I think Nog is looking for team. Spartan is looking for team. Yellow just retired. So I'm assuming Elevate is broken up.
Elevate's
done. Yep.
So there you go. But NA Challenger League has always just been kind of a dumpster fire. It's, you know, these teams that are almost seemingly thrown together last minute of people who've played with each other before, who want to make, you know, Challenger League quals. And I think the biggest problem with NA Challenger League versus other regions is because NA Challenger League, I think, has the weakest support, like structural support, out of all the regions, barring APAC. You know, you look at Latin America and they have good orgs. They have decent orgs down in Challenger League. EU has teams in Challenger League that I honestly believe could take, you know, maps and possibly series off of Latin America and North American Pro League teams. NA Challenger League has always struck me as a place for gunners to find teams so that they can get picked up into Pro League, rather than let's assemble teams and grind through this together and be a team that makes it to the top. And I think that's kind of the issue with NA Challenger League is it's like, it's great that you get these teams that come in, but the problem is that once you end up on like a bottom 4 team after like a couple games, you know, you as a player are not going anywhere on that team, and you're certainly not getting picked up by a Pro League team, you know, if you're on a 5th place NA Challenger League team. So it ends up bottoming out. And I'm very curious to see what NA Challenger League does this season, because I think you still have Talon's on your team now with Shrug. I mean, you guys are going to make a Challenger League run, I'm assuming.
Yep.
NA Challenger League is going to be very interesting because as it stands right now, the only team that I think could reasonably beat either the Sonics or TSM is going to be Leftovers, and that's if they continue to play at the level that they play at. I think they probably would have taken the first map off of SSG on, was it Villa? I believe it was, until Trippin crashed in the qualifiers. And then they had to get, it was a prod to come in. I think that was a major blow for them. And then, of course, they just threw Cafe out because at that point, you know, you're not making it anywhere. But as for the rest of NA, I'm a little surprised with how Rogue has been playing. I think Rogue will improve. I think winning DreamHack Valencia is going to be really big for Rogue from a mental perspective. I still think they have some issues that they need to work on. Space Station just also struggle in a best of 1 format. They draw a lot. And I think the big thing with Space Station is you hit the nail on the head. They're very passive. They're very cautious, and they stall out is how you put it. I don't necessarily think they stall out. It's that I don't think they have a clear direction, and they deliberate too much. While they know what to do, they just can't put it into action for whatever reason, which sure, I guess you could say that's stalling out, but it's like, I think they know what to do. They just can't find the gas pedal to do it. And I think that's because they are such like this reluctant team. And that's why I think they measure up actually really well to European teams. But I think that they need to find something. And I got to say, Fultz has been getting better on that team. Thinking Nate is always so clutch when it matters a lot, but the pressure and urgency of winning a best of one doesn't even come close to a best of three in a qualifier where you're fighting for your life. And we saw them get dismantled and completely fall short against TSM last night, even when the pressure was that high. But I mean, nobody looks like they're beating TSM in a best of three right now, and at least in NA. We'll see what happens with EG and Dark Zero, who they have to play against at some point, maybe in groups. But NA's been really interesting, and it's been a very unpredictable region, which is not what NA has been known for necessarily over the last couple seasons.
No, so honestly, like North American Challenger League this season looks to be probably one of the worst seasons of all time. This is just a bad situation. There's 6 spots open right now, which is a nightmare. And that's without even talking about the qual format. The qual format is also, I don't know why it was changed, but hey, it got changed.
Is it not supposed anymore?
No, it's double elim go fours. It's the old CL format for qualifying.
I wasn't even paying attention at that time. That's how old that is. Okay.
I actually forgot that Rise Nation was down there as well.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that Rise Nation.
They're pretty forgettable right now. NACL, like this season, is probably going to be hot garbage. I don't think anyone is getting promoted, maybe outside of leftovers.
Rise might be able to do something. I don't know. Like Tracken's starting to warm up, but the issue right now is, at least for me on that team, is that they, outside of like Tracken and as well as Factor, the other 3 just haven't been able to really find their groove with them just yet. Like we casted them on USN and they eventually just like flipped the switch, and it wasn't even like a flip switch. It was more or less just like open the gates and let the 2 young guys just all of a sudden grab operators that they can shoot people with and kill people. Like Flynn, I swear to God, like that was the call. That was it. So like, I don't know what they need to do to make an adjustment, but it really looked like Acid, England, and Vandal were just all asleep at the wheel. It was pretty rough from just like a backbone perspective of things. And again, like you can't just have someone that just runs in and shoots a bunch of people. It's not going to work out. Like that's what's starting to come with Luminosity. We've already seen it in the past with the likes of Joystick. Like one person cannot carry you, or 2 people cannot carry you inside of Siege. Like it's a team effort. It has to be done. It's just Rise Nation is in like a really weird time right now because it's almost like they're trying to stick to strats and it's just not working for them. Because a lot of the times, like even some of their takes on Consulate were just very questionable. Like if Factor would die or Tracken would die immediately, it'd just be an immediate stall. Like they tried to attack Yellow and it literally took them like 2.5 minutes. It's just very slow moving until they were finally just like, you know what, screw it. We're just going to drone and try and get some kills with these guys. And it eventually worked out for them. So we'll see what comes with the future. I don't know if that was a wake up call because they were cutting it pretty close with 7 spades. So I don't really know.
Yeah, but USN has been a freak show for Pro League teams.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Pro League teams are just getting destroyed by amateur teams in USN. And I think that's fascinating. And, I think a part of it also comes down to maybe unpopular opinion, but it's how hard the Pro League teams are trying versus the amateur teams who for a lot of these teams, this is their best crack at ever humbling a Pro League team. It's a best of one. Anything can happen. You don't need to have the most robust map pool. You can throw in some wonky operator bands, pull your brain out of your skull for a couple rounds. And next thing you know, you've built up a big enough lead that, pro teams are not going to start pulling like deep level strats out and showing them in like a qualifier matchup. They're just not going to do that. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's Pro League. It doesn't matter if it's a qualifier. It's not as high stakes. And I think that you get a lot of these young gunner squads that come out of nowhere that just have insanely freakishly accurate aim that take fights that you're not used to seeing people take in Pro League. And because of this, they end up getting the better of Pro League teams. And it's really exciting. I think it's great from a viewership perspective for USN that you have these amateur teams doing this. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like it's kind of embarrassing for the Pro League teams that are just getting steamrolled by, these players that are just like objectively worse players and objectively worse teams, but there's a formula at play that allows them to win a match that they maybe shouldn't ever have any business in winning.
Yeah, the unknown's pretty scary. I think that's the main thing, is that you just don't know what's going to happen when you play against these younger teams. Because a lot of the times, like as Parker said, it's just a bunch of people that have a really good shot, and they make calls and just move on with their day. There's no strategy behind it. There's nothing. It's like, hey, we might go for like jacuzzi wall in clubhouse. We'll get that open. But then after that, it's all right, what do we get? Picks. Okay, cool. We're just going to just dumpster that or just utility burn the site and just go or something like that. But all right, that's plenty on NA. So we'll jump over to we'll skip across the pond real quick. We'll go over to EU, where things this season have begun to heat up a little bit. I think the biggest thing that everyone's going to want to talk about is the current positioning with G2 Esports. G2 is currently sitting in 6th. They're tied with Chaos for 5th, but everyone thought the Uno move was going to be amazing. Right now, they've hit a pretty bumpy road. What do you guys think about it?
I mean, you can't put that on Uno, man.
I'm not putting it personally.
Yeah. No, there's people out there who have, though, and I'm just trying to quash that off fucking rip.
I believe we call those people idiots.
Yeah, or as you'd say, smooth brain.
How smooth is your brain that you think that G2's struggles are solely on the solely on the shoulders of one of the probably most talented players in Europe in Uno? Like, how smooth is your brain?
Koala.
Smooth as a fucking marble, bud. Yeah, I think G2, I think honestly they still struggle in the B1 format. I think one of the big differences in storylines that I always find interesting is there's a lot more hate directed towards G2, because you look at the storylines like G2 TSM. Both teams that always have a lot of hype behind them. TSM obviously more recently with the roster pickups, but this season they've both been pretty garbage inside their own region in Pro League in the BO1s. And in BO3s, they still continue to dominate. We went into SI19 thinking, G2's a question mark. We don't really know. And then they had one game that they struggled with, barring the Mantis game in groups.
Yep. No,
fuck, man. Are you serious? They fucking dumpstered everyone except for SSG, kinda Mantis, and Empire on map 1. Everything else wasn't close.
Game, dude, the rec game, I was like, holy shit.
I was so happy I was not casting that game, because I would have been...
That game was very challenging to cast.
Bored out of my skull just watching it.
It was what? It was a 7-2 and 7-2. And even the rounds that Rec won were not exciting rounds. They were kind of like these slogs, and it was very difficult to get into it. And the crowd was certainly not into it.
Yeah.
And at that point, Rec was the only NA team that was left. And it's just it was a very difficult match to cast. That match right there is actually probably one of the hardest matches I've ever cast out of LAN.
It was brutal. So G2 have all these question marks in Pro League, but they never have a question mark anymore, at least at LANs. We head into the major, if anyone's putting G2 outside the semifinals at the very least, I think you're kind of smoking something. But there's so much more hate and questions and just pure garbage being slewn towards G2 versus TSM. Everyone's like, TSM, But they're a BO3 team. It's fine. They're just a BO3 team, and that's the excuse. But you can't use that excuse for G2 for some inexplicable fucking reason. And it's not the format. BO1 is the format in Pro League, so you got to be able to excel at that to keep your spot. I don't think we're ever going to talk about G2 getting relegated at a Pro League, because the relegations will be BO3s, and I think they'll make short work of even some of the best EUCL teams, which, like you said, could probably take a few maps and win against NA and LATAM Pro League teams. But for G2, I think it's more of the same. I don't know how hard I want to dive into, saving strats, all that bullshit. Parker's gone on nauseum about that with every team does it, and I completely agree.
Jesus Christ, dude. I put my brain out of my head and beat it with a hammer.
Honestly, I think G2, honestly, I think they have struggles with... Go for it.
Just in case anybody is listening to this that hasn't heard the diatribes that I go on where my eyes black out with rage and I just write a 30,000 word essay on why that is the stupidest saying for people to defend your team's play. At every point in every match of every matchup that any team will play ever, with the exception of the biggest match of the season / their careers, they will hide things if they don't need to show them. Every
Yup.
team will do this. Every team will target ban maps that they are quietly practicing and never play, and then pull out for a grand finals or a semifinals. Teams, well, you target ban Cafe, you insta ban it, and then boom, you pull Cafe out in the grand finals, and you've got it practiced. Or you'll pull off an operator ban that nobody's ever seen before, or you have a certain retake strategy, or you do something like. Every team is going to fucking do this. Every single fucking team will do this. And the people that are trying to justify shitty play for teams by being like, oh, well, it's just very evident that they're saving strats. Stop it. Every team will save strats. It's not a unique thing. It happens in traditional sports. It happens in esports. It happens in every fucking game that's played. Please stop saying that, because you sound like you're just trying to excuse your team's shitty performance.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. No, you're good. No, and that's the other thing. I kind of want to go off of that for a second, because here's the thing. Guys, if you do not watch traditional sports and you just don't have a team that you follow till the nth, you have to go through shit like this. G2 is not always going to be the best fucking team in Europe. It's not going to happen, okay? Somebody else is going to take over. It's looking like it's going to be Team Empire, but somebody else is going to take over, and then G2 is going to have to battle back up to glory. That's how fucking sports works. The New England Patriots are not always going to be the best fucking football team. One day, Tom Brady is going to die. The man will die, and then the Patriots will suck a dick. That's just how it's going to go. Oh my God, the Browns, guys, the Browns have sucked for so fucking long, and now they're actually good. You want to know why? Because that's how fucking sports works. Okay. God, that shit pisses me off. Oh my God. Okay. So anyways, rest of Europe, I think's panning out how a lot of people thought. I'm kind of disappointed with Chaos, because Chaos is doing chaos and showing these moments of just excellent play, and you're like, holy shit, Chaos is they're down on the grind, baby. They're looking good. Practice must be going well. They look so good at Allied. And then things kind of fall apart at Valencia, and just their Pro League season hasn't been the best. And it's really been the same with Na'Vi. Na'Vi is almost a carbon copy of what's been happening with Luminosity. They're 3-3. They don't have any draws, and Luminosity is 3-1-2. Same play style. It's very comparable. Whereas Team Vitality's just come out swinging, man. They came out of CL and they were just ready. They're in third right now. They're looking really, really good. But it seems like we already have our two front runners, and I don't know if they're going to slow down. We have Team Empire in first by 1 point. They're 5-1. That one is a draw, not a loss. And then we have LFO, which is 5-0-1. So they have one loss, which is that point difference. LFO right now, kind of in a weird spot. They're starting to get more developed with Corey. Again, Uno going over to G2, and that's already been discussed, blah, 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 to the nth. But I think Corey's starting to fit in a little bit better. I feel like right now, though, it is still the Aces show. And it's that if Aces isn't on absolute fire, well, not absolute fire, but if the man isn't on for that day, then LFO's in trouble, and it's going to be hard for them to try and fight out of things. But it seems like they're starting to come back into their own. They're still looking for an org. So if anybody has any org connects and you want to help them out, have them contact LFO. They're the second best team currently in Europe, and they're looking really, really good. Whereas Team Empire, Dan fit in quickly. I think we can all say that. And Team Empire is definitely not going to slow down. So I think overall, things for the rest of the teams have panned out accordingly. Penta is just not good right now at all. Gifu, however you say it, I say it wrong.
Sisu.
Sisu is just not doing hot right now. So that's my understanding of Europe. Again, it's kind of difficult for me actually, because doing USN and then having to catch up on actual Pro League shit is so fucking hard, man. Because right now, we play games so quickly, and you're just things are adjusting so fast. So I look at standings, go back, watch games are important, and then just try and get the story built up to where I understand what's happening. But damn, it's a hard thing. There's so much siege going on right now, man. It's insane.
There's a lot of siege going on. I think for fucking Christ, Penta and Sisu, man. Sisu's another one of those teams like TSM that I thought would be doing a lot better. And they went really deep in the major qual. And I think they made it to the quarterfinals of the losers bracket. Again, it's a fucking nightmare to try and explain. For Sisu and Penta, I think it's a bit of lack of direction for both of them. They look like they don't really have a leader in the room on either team, and it's starting to really fuck with them. Penta has started to flirt with roster changes. We saw Janice coming in for a couple of games for Penta. For Sisu, I don't know if roster changes are really going to fix this unless you're swapping someone for an IGL who will actually get that team moving. Because there's a lot of moments when you watch a Sisu game, man, they just don't move. They sit there, and I think they're expecting everyone to swing on them just because they are so low in the standings, and they're taking it as, fuck it, we're last place by a fucking hefty degree right now. Let's take a swing on some poor injured children and wipe them off the game. And I honestly, for Sisu, I wish they had some kind of direction, man, because it looks like everyone's trying to do their own little superstar play, and fuck, is that not working? And for Penta, the same thing. Like, ever since coming back from SI, it's been more of, does Penta actually have anyone in the room giving calls? Do they have direction? Because if so, whoever's doing that, someone needs to speak up louder. Someone needs to get that team moving in a direction, any direction, really, man. The number of stallouts Penta have, they look almost like old Vitality, where it's the last 20 seconds and it's 4 people diving into an objective on attack. On defense, there's also just a lot of people, like, in fucking Narnia getting picked off. Like, yes. The number of times there's been, like, one person on Penta on a roam just get eviscerated, and there's just no one close to trade. There's no one close to even call out how it happened. Like, you just lose that ground, you lose that player for free, and I think they're both incredibly talented rosters. I don't think there's anything wrong with the actual skill level of the players. I think it's leadership, and both of these teams right now look like they couldn't fucking IGL their way out of a wet paper bag. And to play in EU Pro League, you kind of got to figure that shit out real quick. This is, like, we always talk about Europe being the strongest region, and it is, hands down, the strongest region. There's a lot of teams right now in EUCL looking at that spot going, one best of 3. One best of 3 is all it takes, and we get your spot. Fucking God. I had so much faith in Sisu, too, man. I'm so mad. I'm
bummed with Sisu. I'm bummed with Sisu.
Yeah.
I still to this day say that one of the greatest memories that I've ever had casting and being involved in this scene was casting Ence's victory in Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
Because this was a team that had always achieved very little and always seemed to have the potential to do more. And I like those guys. I genuinely like those guys. They're all incredible people. Shate, Wilkie, Kanto, Bonsi, Panari, that was a hell of a squad. They're all just beauties. And now it's like you've got Gumphy, who I think is awesome as well. You've got Jonas, who is also great. Sleben, who I don't know all that well, but seems like a pretty cool guy when I've interacted with him. I've always cheered that team's success on, and they're a team that I have like almost an emotional investment in. But you're right, they don't have a leader. Or if they do, it's not going the way that they needed to. I like Wilkie a lot, but at the same time, like statistically, I think that there was upgrade potential on Wilkie's role on that team. I don't think that was necessarily a bad call. I think the bigger issue was that they couldn't fill that leadership void. And, there was rumors last season that when the team started to slump when they were playing under Mouse, it was because, Wilkie had handed off some of the IGLing to Gumphy and it wasn't really going as well as they wanted to. And then Wilkie took it over again and the team was okay. It didn't really achieve the same level of success. But man, that one is, it's tough because they are a much better team than they've been so far. And they just can't put it together. As for Penta just...
Yeah.
Penta look lost. I don't even know what to say about Penta, if I'm being completely honest with you. They're a team that I think on paper is actually worse than Sisu, yet are doing better, which I think goes to show you, where we are in Europe right now. Hungary's an incredible player, absolutely talented player. And, them trying out Janice, I think is great. I think he could be a good fit for the team. I think Crunch could also be a good option. I don't know what they're doing with their roster, but something clearly needs to change with Penta, because this was a team that towards the end of the season last year, or season 9 was doing all right and actually looked like they were emerging as a really strong team. That, they almost won DreamHack Winter. And I know that was, December of last year, but still, like, this was a team that won the spot to the Invitational based off that. They looked like a genuine threat. They got rid of Panics for, personal reasons. And I think the team hasn't really recovered since then. I think it's been a slow slide for them since then, and it's been very, very slow. As for the rest of Europe, Vitality and Navi look good. Heartbreaking what happened with Vitality in the qualifiers, but at the end of the day, I don't think I would have done anything different. Forza's waiting and Chaos are waiting. You've got a broadcast that you've got to go on about. You can't prolong it indefinitely. You can't have casters and production staff and teams sitting around waiting for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, however long it takes for his internet to come back. You can't reschedule it to another day because who knows what Chaos and Forza schedules are like. It's not fair to those teams. I think the bigger issue is, and I tweeted about this earlier today, I don't like that it's a best of 3 final because Chaos only lost once that whole bracket, and it's to lose the spot. Like, they should play another best of 3 against Forza, or it should be a best of 5 with Chaos starting up one map. That's how it should have been for all the finals, in my opinion. I hope that we move to that at some point in the future, where instead of having the studio broadcast be like lower bracket finals and then winner bracket finals, I would much rather it be studio broadcast is just a singular best of 5 between the last 2 teams, with the team that's in the upper bracket starting up one map. So, Chaos would have been up against Forza, like 1-0. And then it would have been, 4 map shootout. It's basically the same length as a normal broadcast, could be a little longer. Who really cares? Broadcast length is not the issue here. I think it's more about competitive integrity. G2 is basically out of the playoff picture at this point. Basically every team is, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like right now, unless Looking for Org and Team Empire really fumble, they've both locked their spots in for Japan already, which is kind of demoralizing for these teams. But I mean, Vitality is still very much in the conversation. Navi is to a certain extent, albeit very slightly. The rest from Chaos on down, it's basically a 0% chance that they're going to make it now.
Yep.
Europe has been just as competitive as you'd imagine, but Empire and LFO just look so good. The only thing for LFO that I'd want is Corey is very inconsistent. Some games he tears it up and drops 12, 14 kills, even though it is the Aces show a lot of the times. And other times Corey drops 1 or 2 kills and goes like 1-9. That can't be happening. It wasn't happening for Uno. Corey's always been a little inconsistent. If he can shore up those inconsistency issues, then you're looking at a team that I think can realistically, claim top 3 in all of Pro League from here on out.
Yeah, personally, just on a side note for that with Corey, what I've noticed is that he really doesn't adapt his play style to who he's playing against. And it really, really punishes him because sometimes it's the same thing as with everybody else in all of Rainbow Six. If you play against a team that's being highly aggressive and you're being highly aggressive and trying to fight fire with fire, sometimes, you get locked in sprint or something like that. Like you're sprinting to a door and you get peeked and obviously you can't take gunfights, stuff like that. And it doesn't work out for you. Sometimes you have to adjust your play style to what you're playing against. Otherwise, you're going to end up getting punished. And that's what I've seen a lot of the times with Corey. We even saw it at the Allied Minor. Corey would play the exact same way or relatively the same way against every single team that he faced. And it's a one thing to know what you're really, really good at, but it's also another thing to be able to go, okay, these guys are going to play like this. This is how I'm going to handle this situation. And I think if Corey starts looking at things like that, I think that he's going to be able to come into his own with LFO. And I think they're going to be continue on this reign of success. But with that being said, let's hop down to LATAM, guys. So two teams have already definitely secured their spot. It's NIP and FaZe. NIP's currently 19 points. FaZe is 17. NIP is 6 wins, 1 draw. FaZe is 5 wins and 2 draws. And then we kind of have it trailing off on the back end. INTZ with 11 points, Team Liquid with 9, Team 1 with 9, Black Dragons with 8, and then the big surprise, Immortals with 3, Red Devils bringing up the back end with 1.
I don't think anyone's shocked the Red Devils are in 8th. It's situations like this that I kind of miss auto relegation, but hey, they probably won't survive the relegation game either. Immortals, on the other hand, that's I think a lot of people are hitting the panic button, and for good reason. Honestly, like you're 0-3-4, you haven't got no win through 7 games. That's terrifying. On the other hand, we also saw 2 seasons ago NIP just blow ass throughout the entire online season, and yet they made it to the quarterfinals of Paris. They made SI through the online quals, and now they've made Raleigh through the online quals. And at SI in their group, they didn't make it out of groups. They were actually the worst team at SI. But they picked their shit back up for Season 9, able to hang with some of the best, and I don't know, just be able to remain consistent. And now the train, like the wheels are back on for NIP. So as long as Immortals don't get relegated, which I don't see that fucking happening, I imagine even in the back half of the season we'll see Immortals kind of spike back up. Honestly, I think they're just in their own fucking heads. They look like they just aren't confident in the way they play. I think that 7-0 against Instant fucking help. That was, you kind of got blown out of the water in that game, and shit, man. For Immortals, I feel for them because they didn't play the best in Milan. They didn't play remotely well at SI, so their land troubles still plague them. I don't know, I'm not ready to hit the panic button and full send roster changes and fucking blow the whole team up after half a season of shitty play in online BO1s. I think they're still fine. I think there's a lot of panic. Obviously, you see 0 wins, and you think, oh shit, Red Devils also have 0 wins. Well, I mean, you still got Black Dragons to get a couple points against. I think Team 1's about to fall off, and everyone thinks I'm crazy when I say this. Everyone thinks I'm fucking asinine when I say this, which is I don't think Team 1's the real deal. I think Immortals is going to get a couple valued points in the back half that they'll desperately need. I think they'll be able to hang with Liquid as well, who also look like they're in a transition stage. And yeah, I'm glad that I was right about Ints. Smile, VNX GOAT.
Yeah, the singular impact that VNX has made on that team is insane. And, Red Devils, I think, have been the worst team in Pro League, period, over the last season and a half.
Yeah.
Across every single region, except for some of the lower teams in APAC, But if you take like the top 8 teams in APAC and like kind of like pretend that APAC is just like a top 8 region with like teams from all 4 of the subregions, then I think Red Devils would by far and away be the worst. And I'm actually astonished that they managed to stick around, because even though they beat the team that they played, it was Guidance, wasn't it? Was it Guidance Gaming that they played in the relegations? I can't remember who they staved off in relegations. It might have been Gaming. I can't really remember.
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I didn't cast Latin America relegations, and I didn't really watch it. So
I casted them, and I still forget. So that's how forgettable the games were.
Yeah. Red Devils have looked like the worst team in Pro League, period, for a season and a half now in any region, except for some of the smaller teams in the APAC subregions. And it's very apparent that like the corpse of Red Devils was being dragged along in season 9 by VNX, who is extremely talented. And I think coming on to Ints, some of the changes that Ints have made have been really good. They dropped Uke, and they've Intact has looked like he's a return to form. He's always been a very talented player. He's been playing quite well. Drunks has also been doing quite well. Keep in mind, he came onto that team along with Intact and Boar all at like the same kind of time. And then, VNX has just been so good. And it was kind of funny because like Team 1, from what I understand, have been together for a decent period of time. Like these guys used to play on PS4 together, I think I was told. I think they're good too, but I think they inhabit a role similar to Luminosity in the sense where it's like if Skajinia and Lukid don't really show up, that team doesn't go anywhere. And there have been times where Lukid goes quiet, but Skajinia still shows up. And because of this, they do fine. When both of those players disappear, the team falls apart. There's no depth outside of that, and they can't really rely on anybody else. It's something that I think Black Dragons is suffering from right now too. And Immortals are also in that same position. Cyber and Novice are like 2 of the best players, in my opinion, in Latin America. I think they could probably leave Immortals and jump to one of the other top teams and flourish. But right now, Immortals' biggest issue is that there's no clutch potential outside of them, and they haven't been having the best go of it. Now, whether that's they're not getting set up by, PX, M King, or Bullet, I don't know. But at the end of the day, Navi's and, Cyber are just not performing at the same level that we're used to. And when you have Laxing and Skies on Reciprocity alive in a 2vx, you can never count Rec out. And it was the same with Immortals. If Navi's and Cyber are still alive in the dying moments of a round, the shit they pull off and that they can get away with is mind-blowing. There was a couple rounds in Milan where they single-handedly just destroyed EG in the dying moments of a 1vx or a 2vx.
Mm-hmm.
They are incredible players, but they just haven't looked very good so far this season. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're not getting set up well from their support players. Who knows? Immortals are in trouble. I think when you look at NIP, the problem with NIP was that there was inner turmoil. They didn't like PZD and WAG were not in the best place on that team. WAG could have been dropped from that squad literally years ago. I remember in Sao Paulo, WAG's stats were abysmal in comparison to the rest of that team. And he never really stepped up ever from that point onward. And then PZD, same thing. There was huge upgrade potential on PZD. And there was a lot of turmoil and infighting. And they then started swapping around roles. And you see NIP at LAN, they can get at each other's throats really quickly. Julio ended up like flexing onto weird roles. They had him on like hard breach for a while. And then it's like they just tried to blow everything up. And they found their way now. And yeah, I think NIP is the best team at the moment in Latin America. They look really good. And I think they can make a deep run at the major if they show up the way they did in the quals. But for Immortals, I don't know about hitting the panic button, but I would not be surprised to see a roster move. They're going to have to do something because their support play is really weak right now. And it's not just weak on its own, but I think it's weak in how they're enabling Cyber and Novice to play, because those two guys are better than their stats and they're better than the team they're on right now. And something needs to happen to fix it, because Immortals are basically already out of the race. They're not going to make it to Japan. I mean, it's possible. Keep in mind, there's 7 games left. There's 7 games left. There's 21 points. Right now, Immortals will only finish with 24 if they go perfect, which is 5 points ahead of NIP, and 7 points ahead of FaZe. So you're basically done at this point. It's doable, but it's extremely unlikely unless NIP and FaZe and everybody above them just starts losing all their games. I wouldn't be surprised to see them, make some changes, but here's the problem. They're going to be at Raleigh, so they can't make any changes until afterwards. So they're kind of fucked in that sense, because it's like they have to go into Raleigh with this lineup. And this lineup, with the way they've been playing, they're going out in groups. They're not going to make it out of groups unless they make some kind of change. And they don't have the benefit of time, like we would see in, Luminosity, for example. They might make a roster change during the major, but they're not competing there. So they have all that freedom of a month and a half to fine tune things, whereas Immortals does not.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up LATAM. I mean, the top end is kind of self-explanatory, and you guys already really touched on INTZ. Again, especially, I think the only thing I would want to tag on is Team Liquid and just say, hey, they're kind of trying to figure things out with PSK. Once they get there,
Liquid, yeah. Liquid look very mediocre.
Yeah.
That's how I'd put it. They look like a very mediocre team. They don't look like they're even close to the best team in Latin America. If Liquid had made it to Raleigh, I would put them going out in groups just based on the way that they've been playing recently. Mm-hmm. A lot of people look at like Gohan going off the team as that team going downhill after. Like, I have no doubt that he brought a lot to the team in terms of his IGLing and stuff like that. What he didn't detract from the team with what it seemed to be, his fiery personality. But I think the bigger issue has been not that PSK is bad and not that Moringa is bad, but it's like Moringa has always been a very average player. He's never been exceptional, and I think the big problem with Liquid is, I don't know if it's contractual obligations, but I'm surprised that Liquid hasn't been able to poach a better player off of any of the other Latin America squads. Like, Liquid's one of the biggest orgs in the world. I'm assuming these guys are getting paid probably the best in Brazil. That would be my guess. And they seem to have the best infrastructure. They got 2 coaches. They always have support structures when they fly out to events. They're always doing content. They're getting, sit down meetings with the CSGO teams, for crying out loud. How have they not been able to poach a player off of another team? Because, picking up PSK to replace Gohan is an interesting choice. And then picking up Moringa to replace Zig it's just like, you want to be the best team in Latin America. No offense. You got to go and pick up a better player than that. You have to pick up a bona fide star. And if Team 1 implodes, I could possibly see them maybe picking somebody off of Team 1, Skidjinia, maybe Lukid. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't go for a bigger push to get VNX, and it was INTZ who got VNX. That was actually kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
I don't know. The way that Liquid's been playing is head scratching. And yeah, I think they're very mediocre.
All right, well, let's jump down to Aussie land / New Zealand and see what's going on down there. So we kind of had an old face from Fnatic show up, and previous Athletico, now Orglis, so Neofighter and the rest of those guys on the top of the scoreboard for that region at 22 points, and Fnatic at 19. And then really besides that, it's nobody that we really see at LAN or anything like that. Oddity, Mind Freak, Zealous, Power Plays, Fury, and Team Sin. The only team that I really know besides Orglis and Fnatic is going to be Sinister because of Luna. The other ones just they kind of fall by the wayside, and more or less pretty difficult to track, but might as well throw Japan in there because it is the APAC region. We have Cyclops, which I believe we're going to be seeing for the first time on international land at Raleigh. Didn't they end up winning the qualifier?
Yeah, they won the quals.
So it's them, and then it's Noel Rango, which we're extremely used to seeing outside of Japan. But besides them, the only other team that we've seen outside of Japan is Father's Back. And I got to end up casting them at Valencia, and we saw exactly why we had not seen Father's Back outside of Japan. So
it was so weird because I was watching their off-stream game, their first one against Chaos, and that game was a fucking barn burner. That game went down to the fucking wire so bad that I literally had Derry go and get me updates while we were casting the next game, the game 2 for day 1. I had him out there fucking sending me every single update, and there were a lot of fans for this team. Like that, I don't know what kind of interaction is on this tweet now. I would have to go find it, and I might be able to here while I stall in a circle. But holy Jesus shit! Like
I can jump in.
I got it. The fans were incredible, and I thought with a team that has this many fans, there should probably be some real backing behind it. And it looked like they were actually going to be able to hold their own. This team looked like a fucking team that was really capable against a team like Chaos. They were throwing aggression left and right, jumping out of every goddamn hole on the map, whether it was a door or a window or a skylight or something. Like, man, Chaos struggled with them. The final tweet, so the whole thread has like over like 6,000 retweets. It's fucking ridiculous. The final tweet has 245 retweets, 450 likes, but it has 228,000 impressions. Like, people in Japan evidently care about this team. And now I'm curious why, because they're fucking 0-8 in Pro League right now. So I'm really confused.
They're a bunch of content creators. That's why.
It's not even content creation. It's Japanese. The Japanese Pro League scene is insane. So I was talking to one of the ESL social media guys about the 6 Invitational, and they reference like the one Nora Rengo video that they put up on the ESL Rainbow Six account, where it's like they're doing the L-shaped face dance or whatever.
Yep.
And they said that it not just broke, it smashed every single record for retweets, likes, impressions, everything. And it's crazy. Like, I'll tweet something about like Japanese Pro League, or I'll do like the usual tweet of like the 16 teams that are going to like the Invitational or like the major or whatever. And it always happens like clockwork, morning to afternoon of Japan. My retweets skyrocket. It just blows up. And next thing you know, it's like I've had every now and then, you know, when I do the check marks about like updates and patches and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always will get a couple people in Japan who will retweet it and translate it into Japanese. And I'll just check, and it'll have been like up for maybe 20 minutes and it's already got like 100 and something likes. And I'm like, how? I don't understand. Like, look at Waka. He's got like 50,000, 60,000 followers on Twitter.
I think so.
And that was like, and that's crazy. And it's like, and his international exposure was like a couple LAN events. You know, the Japanese audience for this game is fucking nuts. And when we looked back at the Invitational, I think they were like the 4th highest region or something like that. I think it was like English stream was like the largest. And then it was like, I think it was like, it might have actually been the Portuguese stream was the 2nd highest. And then the Japanese stream was the 3rd highest.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And it was like in the middle of the night for them or something like that. If I remember correctly, or the early morning. it was mind-blowing how much Japan cares about Pro League. It's insane, and all it does is make me even more stoked for the Japanese Pro League finals at the end of the year.
Are you stoked, dude? Are you stoked?
Stop.
Stop breathing,
anyway,
Sam.
Robert, continue.
There we go. Yeah, Father's back. I mean, man, they looked good in that first game. I was walking around, and man, Chaos were fucking like they were getting pretty concerned near the end of that game, end of map 1 as well. That went 8-6, I think, on the first map in favor of Chaos. And holy shit, they got up and like, what's his name? I think it's is it Siren? No, whoever the coach is for Chaos, I forget his name.
Sired.
Syrid, yeah, there we go. He stands up and he just looks at me. He just like the biggest fucking sigh of relief and exasperation and panic comes out of him. He just puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, "Fuck." He walks away. And I'm like, "Oh my god, are you guys okay? Like, is this is a Japanese Pro League team with 0 wins. Like, are you going to be okay?" And Father's Back came and took map number 2 and pushed Border map 3 to 8-7. Like, that game was just fuck. I wish we had that recorded. And thankfully now we will with DreamHack Montreal at the very least. All games will be broadcasted, apparently. But Jesus Christ, they were giving Chaos so much trouble, and then they go on stage, and that was disappointing, to say the very least, against MCES. So I don't know what to think about that team, honestly. The amount of trouble they were giving Chaos, I'd like to see them back at another minor. But man, their Pro League performance as well has been yikes. And it's not even like the games have been close, man. The games have not been close. They have a minus 32 round differential. Like, they're just getting slapped left and right. It's disappointing because I was looking forward to, following another team, because basically this is the cycle that happens. No one really knew about a lot of APAC teams before they started getting involved and being invited to every seasonal LAN and having representation at every major. So you look back to like Ainz at the first or Ainz at Sao Paulo, and then again I think Ainz was there for SI 18 as well. And you start learning about the team, and then you just do the cycle again. Another team shows up, and then you learn about them. Then you go, and then you start following them. So now we have like 5, 6, 7 APAC teams that we all follow, we all know about. And I was hoping that Father's Back would join that realm, just because of the fucking anarchy that was that game against Chaos. I thought a lot of international viewers would really get behind this team just because of how chaotic their playstyle is. Man, they flopped. I was really hoping to see another team, but it doesn't even look like they're going to survive in Pro League anymore.
All right, well, that about kills it for our Pro League of All Regions talk. So
you're welcome.
Now we're on to major quals of all regions. Yay!
Don't fucking remind me. Yeah.
Hey guys, did you guys know that Flynn lost to Luminosity?
Well,
you had a really nice 1vx with Smoke though.
Did I? I don't fucking remember.
Yeah, I think it was on Coastline.
I'm the worst. Anyway,
Parker was really like, "Hey, Flynn didn't fuck it." Like, it wasn't even there was like no shout casting. Like,
oh yeah, no. Those games. Those games you're not supposed to cast. You're just supposed to roast the fuck out of teams.
Oh, absolutely. It was fantastic. We were actually live while you were we were live while you guys were playing the match.
Yeah.
And I was casting my game, but I had on my iPad, like, because I had the stats up, but like you can like multitask. I had your guys' game up on like the secondary section of my pad. So like I could look up and see like the score of what was happening in your game. And I was like, oh, they're getting fucked. Like, this is not good.
Yeah, that was not a fun game. The rest of the NA quals were interesting though. There were a couple teams that kind of made a few waves that I don't think they would have predicted. Leftovers' performance in the open quals was dog shit. They were particularly awful in the open quals, but that was also a team that had barely played together at that point, and they made roster moves every week. So they actually have their roster. I'm impressed by their run. The Embers as well. Pretty decent run, although they had a remarkably free run in their little quarter of the bracket, so take it with a grain of salt. I don't know. There's a couple teams in here that I'm looking at because we talked about the NACL, and like I said, I think this is actually going to be the worst fucking season of NACL, and you're going to be seeing a lot of these teams running for CL. I don't know really what to think. I think TSM though, like Parker said about a couple times earlier, no one's beaten them in a fucking BO3, and host country invite is the last available spot. I don't know how that's being decided. I don't think anyone knows how that's being decided. They're the last team to show up for the major until we can actually do groups and shit. You're looking between like Rec, LG, and SSG at that point. I don't know who they take out of that, and I don't know how they decide who they take out of that. You go off pure performance, then SSG was in the final, so you give it to SSG. If you go off, I don't know, performance in Pro League or I don't know, recent lands or something. I guess Rec has the better record in Pro League compared to SSG for last season and this season. I don't know, Luminosity because they're new and they're a big org. Like I don't know how the fuck you weigh those differences. I don't know how you pick apart and decide which one of those three teams gets the spot. Because it sure as fuck is not going to be the Sonics.
I was actually having a discussion, I think it was on stream a couple days ago. They really need to release how they're going to make this decision, just so there isn't any controversy. You know, like I don't know if it needs to be from prior land wins or just I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm with Parker on this though. I think of all the teams, I think that SSG should definitely get the spot. Just for everything, just because of not only how good their org representation is, but the fan base as well as how well they perform on land.
I mean, right now, Helby is saying that he suspects that whether a team made it into the pilot program or not, which keep in mind, there's up to 16 teams that will be unveiled at some point this year, maybe in Raleigh, maybe in Japan. We don't know when. But if they're going to announce it sooner rather than later, it obviously makes sense for a team that is in the pilot program to get invited. Now, if SSG got in, great. You know, that checks a lot of boxes right there. If Rec got in, then it would make sense to bring them too. My big thing for Rec is that if you go back to Rec, like, yeah, they won DreamHack Montreal, right? And then they qualified for the 6 Invitational. C9 didn't have, the greatest of runs at USN. They finished, I believe, top 4, just as SSG did. They didn't attend DreamHack Winter, which SSG came literally within a round or two of advancing to the finals against Penta. So a top 4 finish there for SSG. SSG also, I can't remember where they finished in DreamHack Montreal. I can't remember if SSG even made it to the quarterfinals. I'd have to pull that up. Then you go to the actual 6 Invitational itself, and SSG put on probably one of the best matches. In my opinion, it's the best match of the whole event against G2. And yeah, Rec finished farther, but they got absolutely smoked in the quarterfinals by G2. So to me, like, I know that most people might not agree with me here, but I think that's kind of a draw. Like, I think the way that SSG played G2 is actually more commendable than Rec's run by beating EG and then getting absolutely just slaughtered by G2. Even though Rec did make it to the semis, that they deserve a lot of credit for that. Allied Esports, and then you look at DreamHack Valencia, these teams aren't always competing. Like Allied Esports, SSG didn't have the best run. They had faults on it. They've trailed Rec in Pro League. The only thing that tips me towards saying I think SSG should go is that they they beat Rec in a straight head-to-head qualifier match. That right there is like the tiebreaker for me.
Yeah.
Rec has a greater wealth of achievements since September of last year. Almost, let's go back a year. Rec has a greater I'd say body of work than SSG. I think that's indisputable. Though I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think it's big, but it's not that big of a difference. But then when you factor in that SSG just beat Rec and then beat Luminosity and made it to the finals, I think that means an awful lot, because this is an invite for it's an event specific invite. And in terms of this event, SSG were the second best team in the qualifiers. They were indisputably better than Rec. And the only teams that beat SSG in the entire thing were Luminosity, who SSG got their revenge against, and TSM, who qualified for the event. I think you could justify giving it to Rec, and I'm not going to be upset if Rec ends up getting the invite.
No.
But I honestly think that in this case, the fairest thing to do, and I've also held that I think that the team that finishes second should have the strongest case to go, no matter whether it was Rec, SSG, Luminosity, your dumpster ass shrug team, doesn't matter. Whoever finishes second, I think gets a huge amount of weight to actually get the invite. I think it's one of the fairest ways to do it. In this case, I'm not going to be upset if SSG goes. I think they are, in my opinion, the team that should go. If Rec ends up getting it, I'm not going to be upset either. I think it's a win either way, but I think SSG just slightly edges out Rec because of the performance in the qualifiers and their performance in all qualifiers in the past.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling, man. Just overall, because of org representation, the amount of fans that they have behind them, and just everything. They're in my eyes, they're the perfect team to go. You know what I mean? Like, there's not another organization inside of Siege that gets behind their team like SSG does and can create hype from literally nothing. So again, with a very well-skilled team that we've seen perform extremely well at LANs and major quals and everything else, all except for Pro League, I really am feeling like SSG is going to be the pick. But we'll have to see, man. Only time will tell with that. But
Q&A
we're
time.
hopping over to next.
Q&A time.
Q&A time.
Nah, we already talked about it, like the Forza thing and all that.
Yeah.
All right. GG's Forza.
All right, Parker.
2 Russian teams.
All right, Parker. We're doing Q&A. So we got quite a fucking bit. So
Quite a fucking bit, eh?
Quite a fucking bit, eh, buddy?
All right, fucking feed us the questions.
All right, you motherfuckers. You've missed it. We're back. It's Q&A. By the way, if you guys didn't remember, the B-Leaguers podcast is sponsored by the fucking Koyo store. You guys can head over to koyostore.com and use the code B-Leaguers for 5% off of anything R6 or really anything related that's on the Koyo store. And we get a little bit of a kickback if you do. So please, if you guys want some badass pins or something for your backpack, hat, pin it to your cat. I don't really care. Don't do that. That's animal cruelty. We don't condone that. But anyways, pin it somewhere, show it off, use code B-Leaguers. Just do it. All right. So with that being said, let's hop into things. All right. So first things first, this is going to be from Freeze. He offered up quite a few things, but Freeze 541, we're just going to pick out a couple that we did not already cover with obviously going over things, which is what quite a few of these are. So in an earlier episode, you guys discussed ranked fraggers not necessarily translating to successful pro league players. Is that what's going on with TSM and Bolo? And he says, update, TSM shut down SSG hard. So I'll be looking forward to these thoughts.
Well, first of all, Bolo's had plenty of seasons of competitive experience going back to when he was 15 and 16. So I don't think it's a very unfair generalization of him as a player to say that he's a ranked gunner. I think the problem when you have rank stars who get into comp is they play very individually, and they don't always know how to work well with a team. They don't know how to take commands or orders in the middle of a game or work within a strategy that's built on teamwork or two people working together to complete a common goal. You got a lot of guys out there or girls out there who think that because they get their kills in rank, that they would be a good player at a higher level. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that fraggers run the game. And we've seen plenty of times where a fragger has an iffy day or a bad day. Support players can still pick up where the fragger is leaving holes. No one wants to be a support player either, which I think is a weird thing because I love being a support player. No one wants to do it, and I don't really get why, and I think that just comes as well from the ranked mentality of, support players aren't supposed to get kills, or they don't get a lot of kills anyway, they can get kills. So therefore, that's not a fun role to play, or that's not an important role to play, or I'm a better fragger in ranked than I am a support player in ranked. And to be honest, you never play support in ranked, you just run around and gun people. Like, it's an entirely different game, but to say either of the players on TSM are ranked gunners is fucking asinine. Bolo has played CCS for technically 3 seasons, although the first one kind of has an asterisk against some pro teams. He's also played in other competitive aspects for a very long time, and he's also not playing in a fragging role. He's playing in a flex support role, so I think it's a very unfair generalization of the way he plays, and I think TSM will be fine. Like Merc as well has been playing comp for fucking forever now, so I don't I don't think it's fair to associate either of them with just a rank gunner tag.
Parky, any thoughts?
I don't really know how to perfectly describe what's going on with TSM. I wouldn't call them a ranked gunner squad either. I mean, I think a lot of people had this impression that Bolo was going to come in and just do these crazy Bolo flicks all over the place and just absolute dumpster pros. But it's like you're playing up against the toughest competition in the most competitive environment. Like, it's great that Bolo could do like nutty things in like CCS and stuff like that. But let's be honest, these leagues aren't really comparables in terms of skill. I think Merc has been kind of overshadowed because he was a really highly touted prospect coming into Pro League. You know, on OC, I think a lot of people saw him and Fultz having huge potential. And I don't think Merc's real potential has been realized just yet. I'm interested to see if this Crusher move from Pojo on TSM is permanent. Because I don't like, I mean, I think Pojo's fine, but I think Pojo's more valuable as a coach. And I think if they really are intending to keep Crusher off of the roster, they'll probably play through Raleigh with Pojo on the roster and then try to find somebody to jump in to replace him come the second half of the season. That would be my guess. And there's lots of players, honestly, in Challenger League that I think could come up, you know, that Crazy did really well on that squad, you know, replacing Crusher on USN.
Yep.
Honestly, I'd be pulling Crazy off of leftovers and throwing him onto that TSM roster because Crazy's got great, you know, great upside when it comes to fragging power. And you need that on support roles. Finding good supports who can clutch and frag well while doing their job is so difficult. And the teams that have them, they don't let them go. So if you can find somebody like Crazy, who sure, maybe he's used to playing IQ or maybe he's used to playing, you know, whatever frag operator on defense. If you can pick him up and move him to more of a support role and work in conjunction with Bolo, who's been kind of on support duty as well, I think that team's got lots of killing potential all the way down that lineup. And then you move Pojo back to coach. I think that team's going to do quite well. And sure, you know, bringing Crazy on is probably not going to change a lot of people's opinions when it comes to it being, you know, a ranked team. But I think it definitely raises the abilities and the possible, I guess, potential that you could have on TSM.
All right. Well, I think that's really all that can be said about that. So moving on to the next thing. I knew this was more than likely going to get asked, and we don't need to talk about it if you guys don't want to. Do you guys have any thoughts on Ranger and the negative comments Penta just made?
Do I have any thoughts on it? I mean, that's
or what's just general, what's up with it?
I mean, that's a perfect example of saying some stupid shit and then having the results thrown back in your face. I mean, there are a lot of people out there being like, yeah, you know, what if Rogue lost? Would Rangers still clap back like this? And probably. I mean, Tristan's not the kind of guy to just lie down and take that. He waited for the perfect time to do it too. That was hilarious. I think Jess has just been like, she's been caught a couple times where she said some dumb shit. And we've said some dumb shit, so we're not perfect over here either. That was funny. That's all it is. It's funny as hell.
I remember we were talking about this, and I was like, dude, like I tried to, you know, help her out and try and like expand on it, but then I was like, no, just step away from the drowning person for a second. Don't do something too rash. And then you were literally like, I don't know how the fuck you haven't ended up on Reddit, Stokes. Like you said some really dumb shit. And I was like, yeah,
it's because no one listens to this trash ass podcast.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not fucking wrong.
Fucking love you,
I mean, one piece of advice, I think that you guys should move this to like a visual format, like how Veli does on the flank. Like have, you know, turn off alerts and everything like that. Don't read chat, but broadcast it live and then just record the audio and then upload that later. I think having like a visual component would really raise your profile in terms of the podcast.
Yeah. Do that when I'm not sweating balls fucking topless right now with no AC and no windows that open.
Can I jump in on the Jess question, by the way?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Go for it.
Dude, yeah, no, you're here.
First and foremost, I would like to say I'm very pro dunk. Every opportunity I see to take a dunk, the easier the dunk, the better. I take it. I have no animosity or ill will towards Jess. I think she's fine. I think her results as a coach have probably not been as strong as she'd hoped. And I don't know where her position in Penta is going to lie. You know, a lot of people were saying that they were going to drop her. There was a lot of nastiness involving that. And then she and the team came out and said that wasn't true. I don't really know, and I don't really care for the gossip aspect of it. That doesn't really trouble me. I think esports, and I touched on this in my own podcast, needs more villains. And I think that Jess is uniquely positioned to be like kind of the stern villain if she wants to be. And I think she should have doubled down on it. You know, she could have easily come out swinging and be like, you guys have had one good result since USN, and it was you winning DreamHack, and congratulations. But it doesn't change the fact that you could still possibly benefit from a coaching change. I think she should have doubled down on it, if I'm being completely honest with you. But the problem is that a lot of people want to be liked, and people don't really react appropriately, and they really pile on. When I sent out my snarky tweet about like her needing to like look at her own record, and I was like surprised with the fact that like she's been streaming or doing whatever, it was just a snarky dumbass comment that I didn't expect to gain a lot of traction. And if I'm being honest, I didn't actually expect it to blow up as much as it did, because when I first commented, it was like over an hour old and Ranger had like 100 likes or less. And I was like, okay, like this isn't really going to go anywhere. I'm just going to leave like a snarky post and get out. And then next thing you know, like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours later, my tweet has over 1,000 likes. And I'm like, holy shit balls. Like, I did not expect it to get this much traction. I thought it was just going to be a stupid snarky comment that would get like 50 likes and I'd move on. And I feel badly if it directed any like undue negativity her way, because in all reality, I don't think the fact that she streams and goes on podcasts means that she doesn't do her job. You know, I said it myself. I think that she's the type of person who needs to be freakishly busy in order to be productive and keep herself sane. And you know, I know a lot of people who are like that, where they can do a billion things and you're amazed at how good they are at doing all of them. I think the bigger issue is that we've never really had this in the scene before. And Ranger loves a good counterpunch, and they tend to come obviously when, you know, he can justify them. And in this case, his team had just won. So it's a perfect opportunity to kind of rub it in your opponent's faces to a certain extent. And I can't fault him for taking it. But I think the community reacted pretty awfully to her, like in a way too dramatic a way. And I feel badly that I was somewhat of a participant in that with my tweet, because if I had known that it was going to blow up that hard, I would have stayed out of it. I thought it was just going to be a funny comment. I was going to move on with my fucking day. And that is not what happened. So
yeah, he kind of sent things into a spiral there for a little bit. And I was, yeah.
That tweet circled the sun.
Dude, it circled the fucking spectrum, my boy. Like fucking Reddit, everything had a hold of that motherfucker. It was, yeah. All right. Anyways, I've already said my shit about the whole fucking situation between Ranger and Jess. I just think it was a stupid fucking comment. I don't think it was smart. That's why if you guys go watch the clip or actually watch the full video, like I start to go and like, yeah, like I understand how like you could say that, blah, blah, blah. Like they haven't had the best results recently. And then like you'll see like something like change real quick. And I just back off. Like I just end my thought like really quickly and I just drop it. Cause I was like, I'm not also jumping on this sinking ship. That's not fucking happening. I'm smarter than that. Not going to do that. So, all right, moving on to the next question. Still from Freeze. Any opinions on Drip/Yard getting picked up by Disrupt? I think it's a good move. I think that they're trying to find exactly what they want their identity to be, and they really haven't had the results that they've wanted. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes, man. I don't know.
I don't know if Rob is dead, but I guess I'll just jump in.
Whoa, what? I was on Twitter. I didn't even think he asked a question.
Okay, well,
this
is your podcast, bud.
Go for it.
I think that Drip's a talented player. I think he will forever be dogged by the comments that he's made. And I think rightfully so, if I'm being honest with you. They were horrendously awful things that he said. And without exaggeration, are some of the worst things that I've heard any competitive level player who wants to make a name for themselves say. And I think he should have been more aware of that. And now he's going to reap what he sows. And there were rumors going around that, you know, his past was preventing 92 Dream Team from picking up an org. I don't know how true that is, but from what I've talked to in orgs that are involved in various esports scenes, I would not be surprised if like reputable tier 1 orgs wanted nothing to do with him. Because even if the org doesn't care, Toyota might care, or Coca-Cola might care, or Puma might care, or Mercedes-Benz might care, or whichever teams or sponsors are sponsoring these teams. You know, you've got a video that is still very well circulated of him going on a horrendously awful racist tirade and so using some of the worst language that I think most people will hear on any given day. And yeah, I think that's going to hinder your ability to be picked up by a team. Now, Disrupt as an organization is pretty small potatoes when it comes to, a broader esports scene. But I think that he's kind of going to be in this loop where every time his team makes it to Pro League, he's probably going to get dropped unless it's an org that just doesn't give a shit. And I don't know in North America how many orgs with how the N word is seen in North America. I don't know if there are any North American orgs that would ever take a gamble on that.
Sam, you good?
My bad, it was a misclick. Anyways, yeah. So if you couldn't get the gist of it, we're talking about Drip Yard Sosa Disrupt.
Yeah, two of the dumbest things that have happened all week. Honestly, those would be the two dumbest changes by any team in any region for the next month, bar none. You drop Evil Waffle and you pick up Drip. Fucking stupid ass shit right there. Fucking dumb ass shit right there. They're gonna put Yeti on Breach? You're gonna put Yeti on support, huh? Okay. Yeah, you gonna do that? You guys are fucking idiots. Whole lot of you. Christ almighty. Goddamn idiots. Whole fucking group of you.
Well.
Have fun getting relegated out of Challenger League. Christ almighty. Yeah, I'm not pulling any punches on that one, man.
Well, I mean, you do love yourself some Evil Waffle, so I understand it completely.
Yeah.
So again, I'm in the boat of we'll see how it goes. I don't know if it's the best move. We've seen a lot of rosters versus like everyone on that team's an absolute gunner, and it doesn't work out because people don't know how to play support, or they don't want to fucking do it, or they don't know how to do it. And I feel like we might fall into that boat because, as fucking Flynn just said, it's gonna be Yeti on support.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Which I have literally competed against Yeti all the way back on Xbox, and I've never seen this man play support a day in my fucking life. So
good fucking luck.
We'll see how it goes. Anyways, you might discuss this earlier in the podcast, but discussion on how DreamHack Valencia went. I would say, just from a casting perspective, it was the worst land I've casted besides my first land, which obviously it's my first land. It's not going to be the best, but it was more or less, you're going to have bad lands, and that's just how that one went for me personally. It's there's no excuses. Like, there was shit there that like I just had to try and adapt and get around. But for me personally, it was very difficult. Flynn was a lot happier though, which was good because he wasn't being such a fucking head ass. So
fire alarms goat.
Fire alarms goat, dude.
Yeah, the fire alarms were hilarious. Yeah, I don't really know where it came from. I got a lot of praise for the casting in Valencia, and I don't know why. I was a month and a half on the bench, just hadn't casted a single fucking day in my life since Milan. Milan I didn't feel too hot about, so I don't know why people enjoyed it more than Milan. I thought they were about, like, I don't think I did particularly well in Valencia, but hey, whatever. Fuck it, other people did, so therefore I'm wrong. Outside of that, I mean, besides the casting, like, Valencia was fun. There wasn't a whole lot to do, like around the hotel and stuff. Hotel was nice though. We ate at the hotel and there was a pool. That was fun.
We got majorly drunk downstairs as well.
We did. We got severely fucked up. That was a good time. That was, yeah. So I went to the bar to try to order 2 beers, and this dude grabs a fucking bottle of vodka and just pours me and Sam a glass of vodka each and hands them to us. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm about it. And Sam's just like, no. And I'm, okay, I'll take yours too. Why not? And that spiraled. That was a fun night. That was something.
Yeah, that was a thing. Me trying to order drinks for us in Spanish because they were actually giving me free drinks for us if I ordered in Spanish, like most of the time, which was really fucking nice. Like, Flynn and I probably had like 6 to 7 beers that were just free because I ordered in Spanish and not English, which was very nice because ordering in Spanish alcohol wise is extremely easy. If you guys are going to a country that speaks Spanish and you want 2 beers, just say dos cerveza por favor, and they will give you 2 beers. It's the easiest fucking thing. And sometimes you get free alcohol because you're trying. That's exactly what happened. So It's very, very nice. But overall, Spain's temperature wise was actually really nice. Like it's a dry heat. It's nice. Don't have to die. It's good. The next question we're going to kind of avoid because it's just more or less very difficult because we don't know how groups are going to stack up just yet. But I'll read it out anyways for freeze. But it was the Raleigh major predictions. If each of us could name 2 teams, which is going to be difficult because we don't know what groups are going to look like. So we don't know who could possibly contend in main stage. This is actually a good question for the last one from him. How do coaches function in online matches versus LAN? What are the rules surrounding coaches at LAN and comms? So for on LAN, they can only talk during timeouts, and they get a 30-second period to where they can talk during that timeout. And once that 30-second period is up, then they can no longer talk to their team. Otherwise, they're just another bystander that's just watching the game from behind their team, and they can just input during those timeouts and in between games. That is it. Online, I'm 99.9% positive that they cannot have a single thing to do with the game because, I mean, well, for one, like they obviously could, but it's just terrible practice because you don't want to be like, oh, hey guys, like this is what you fucked up. Like, no, you have to let your team figure it out because if you guys do go to a LAN, then you're fucked. Like you can't be in their shit every single round. So
that was a big thing back in CS:GO where your coach could talk to a player at any point in time. So essentially, you would literally just pick up a coach as an IGL, and then you'd have 5 people that just run around and frag. And that like was a huge fucking controversy for a couple of years in CS, just because it was like there's 5 people in the server. There's 5 people playing on a team. Why the fuck is there a 6th person literally calling every single push and play and rotate? Like, what? How does that make any fucking sense? So I know there's a lot of people out there who ask this question about coaches online. The last fucking thing you want to do is like IGL your team as a coach during an online match. You could probably pipe in and, I don't know, give them like a couple things at the end of a round, or like maybe IGL saying, hey, let's go here, and then coach says, remember we talked about this, they like this site, we do this site, or do this take, or whatever the fuck you want to say. But you could probably interject with like 1 or 2 words, but like you said, you don't want to practice with your coach IGLing you because that gets locked the fuck down on LAN. There's just no way to police it online, so there's no actual rules surrounding it.
Mm-hmm. Parker, any thoughts?
No.
Okay. All right. So for the rest of these,
Flynn has my proxy for that.
All right.
For the rest of these, I'm just going to pick the 2 best from each person. I will obviously continue reading out names, but we'll try and jump through these as quickly as we can. So next up, we're going to have Quincy _YDG, which he is going to ask, TSM and Luminosity come in, Lestream and Mouse leave. How does it make you feel? What are you guys' thoughts about the orgs bouncing in and bouncing out, especially with like TSM and Luminosity, which are arguably 2 T1 orgs, especially TSM obviously being a T1 org?
I mean, I'm waiting to see what other orgs come in because we have a couple orgless teams right now. Sisu and LFO come to mind. I think Luminosity is still a huge pickup, but I think there's more to follow. Parker's always on the fucking screaming and banging the pots and pans of, yeah, there's more orgs that want to come in, and I completely believe him. And there's other things, but like there's gonna be
there's
more
still big orgs looking.
Yeah, like there's gonna be way more orgs coming in, and I kind of want to see the full crop together and just kind of stand back and look at the mural and go, holy fucking shit, every team was orgless like 2 years ago.
Yeah, right?
I mean, we're already kind of there right now. If even just looking at like the Raleigh page, like I'm impressed. You know, like the 6 Invitational was the same too. You know, like I'm kind of bummed that Cloud9's has taken some major steps back. You know, Mantis was, I think, indisputably the 3rd best team in APAC for so long, and now under Cloud9 they haven't been, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why. It would have been nice to have them there, if I'm being completely honest with you. Not that Cyclops isn't great, but just from like an org and brand perspective. And I think that team, honestly, that team is good. It's the best team in Korea. The more LAN experience they get, the better. And I know that Cloud9 is going to take care of them and fly them out to events, and that's great, but they desperately need more experience. And I think it would have been great to have them at Raleigh, even though Raleigh isn't necessarily like a place to learn. It would have been an opportunity for them to do so. Looking at the org stepping out, I mean, it sucks because it's like Lestream is the same parent company that owns Millennium. right? So they've been involved in esports to a certain extent, and sorry, there's a car outside my house.
I heard it as well.
Yeah. They really seem to love and support their team, and the team, like the actual team itself, spoke extremely highly of Lestream. But at the end of the day, Lestream is also not an esports org, right? They didn't have jerseys for the longest while. I don't think they have another team right now. I think they have a Fortnite team, but it's mostly content creators like every Fortnite team. And it's just like, I can understand why they came in with the intentions of doing a pilot program run. And then when they didn't get it, they are like, well, fuck, there's no point in being around here, For Lestream, I can understand why they exited. For Mouse, I have less nice things to say about Mouse. I am very critical of the organization when they picked up the North American team. From my perspective, as a caster and as a viewer, it didn't seem like they cared at all about their Rainbow Six team in North America. And then they picked up a European team and they were doing a lot more promotion and they were actually like talking about their streams and stuff like that. I thought that was great. And then, the moment that they hear they're not getting into the pilot program, just like Lestream, they immediately dumpster their team and they leave again. I'm not exactly sure how to come at that. I don't have any love lost for Mouse. They're one of the oldest esports orgs. They're a very storied name, sure, all that jazz. But at the end of the day, I'm not too bummed out by them leaving. The people I care for the most are the players who are now orgless and not making any money when they really should be. The pilot program, in my opinion, could have been managed better or differently. I don't want to say better because I don't know if it would have been better, but differently. Instead of going with the pilot program where you directly fund teams, I would have liked to have seen a system where you rewarded teams for their performance at LAN events and stuff like that. Now, a lot of people turn around and said, well, that would make it even more top heavy because if it's the same 8 teams going to every single event, then it's only 8 teams that are actually making money. And I think that that's very valid critique of my suggestion. But I would rather have a rewards-based system where, similar to CS:GO, if you make it, you get a sticker. You get your signature in the game. You get things that you can put on your guns for the majors and stuff like that. And then you split that revenue up. I would have liked to have seen that, where you reward teams for qualifying for the major, where you reward teams for qualifying at various events and doing that. And yeah, it's more work and it's going to take a long time. The amount of time it takes to make skins and charms and stuff like that is not quick. But at the end of the day, I still think that that's a better reward than just kind of picking 16 teams. Now, the other thing that I think needs to be reminded of, people need to be reminded of here, is teams have to submit bids. There is a high likelihood that some of these orgs that will probably shock us to not be in, because I would expect, just now looking at the big orgs in the scene, there's more than 16 big orgs. Just by numbers, a couple of them are not going to get in. And people are going to be salty and players are going to be mad and fans are going to be angry. But I think it's worth noting that they have to submit bids. There's a high likelihood that some of these companies submit fucking terrible bids and they just completely fuck it up. And Ubisoft outlined all of these strict guidelines. You have to pay your teams, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to care for them, all these jazz. It's so that players are going to be protected from shitty and predatory orgs, which definitely exist out there. And good for Ubisoft to safeguard their players. But there's definitely going to be teams, I have a feeling, that will apply and will just have garbage applications. And Ubisoft will look at them and be like, yeah, no, this is terrible, and reject them. That could have been the case for LSE and Mouse. They could have literally submitted 2 of the worst applications, and Ubisoft looked at them and were like, you have no idea what you're doing. No, you're not getting to the pilot program. Or there could be, let's say, because it's 16, maybe it's 4 slots per region. We don't know how it breaks down. Maybe EU was just so competitive that LSE and Mouse put in amazing bids, but they weren't as good as some others. We don't know that. And we will never really know because Ubisoft isn't going to tell us. And the orgs aren't going to fess up to whether they mailed it in on a bid or not.
Yeah.
So before people grab their pitchforks and start saying, Ubisoft is killing the game, Ubisoft is driving big orgs out, I can right now name 5 huge orgs that are still in the process of looking through Rainbow Six to see if they want to step into the scene. And these are not small orgs. And the pilot program is obviously an incentive, but they're still interested. And I don't know if Luminosity or TSM got in. From what I've been told, TSM did not. So they've picked up the squad knowing that they're going to be locked out of the pilot program for a year. And I would guess that Luminosity is probably in the same boat.
Yeah, and I think the main thing right now, especially with the whole pilot program talk, for me personally, a lot of this stuff does weigh on the pilot program, which is fine. That's perfectly okay. Obviously, orgs need to make money too. They're obviously a business, but as you said, a lot of these organizations just aren't in it for the right reasons, and that's something that the pilot program proves. And I'm perfectly okay with that. If it allows space for other organizations that actually give a fuck about their teams and their members and everything else that comes along with it, then I am absolutely perfectly okay with rosters getting dropped and getting picked up by people that are more deserving to help out those players. And I mean, sometimes this is how the cookie crumbles, man. It gets difficult when obviously you see teams like Listream getting dropped, and not really Mouse because they're kind of on a downward slope right now. But especially with Listream, where it makes a lot of people that aren't as attuned to the scene look at it and go, "Okay, Rainbow's falling off. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening." But that's really not it. Rainbow's more or less. I mean, just look at it for the last 3 years, guys. I mean, Rainbow's been on a steady incline. Granted, the incline's kind of slowed at this point, but that's fine. Like we're with Ubisoft, we're working with Ubisoft to make it more accessible to the general public. I mean, we have over 50 million players inside of Rainbow Six Siege now, not daily or whatever, blah, 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 but we have over 50 million people that have played Rainbow Six Siege, and that's a massive number. I think this also falls back in that whole thing of like, we just need to do more for esports, and that's fine. This is Ubisoft's first big esports. They're getting things figured out, and everyone's trying to help them along that path. Again, compare us to CS in viewership. That's perfectly fine. Look at their biggest things of the year. Let's throw it back to the biggest CS event that's happened in probably the last 3 years, the Boston Major or C91. That final was viewed by 1.3 million people. If I remember the number off my head, at the top of my head, 1.2. Our biggest event of the entire year is always SI. And I believe our biggest SI number was 600,000, if I remember it correctly, across all platforms. So CS has been around for what, 20 years now? A little bit over that. This game's 3 years old, and then you want to compare apples to oranges. Like it's a hard thing. Esports has taken a massive jump the last couple of years. This game's still very young. It's getting ran by a company that is newer to esports, and they're trying to get things figured out. So again, give it time. I think things are really, really going to go with it. And this next question is also going to dive deeper into, just org talk and contracts and everything else. I think that's going to make for a pretty good discussion, but that's my 2 cents on that whole situation. So next is the DZ contract extension announcement. Is this contract too long in esports, or do we just not know enough about what is in them to see whether or not it's a good deal for the team, i.e. renegotiation options dependent on winning majors, etc.? What is the next move in esports in terms of player security? There isn't enough room at the top currently. What has to happen in order for a players union type of thing to form?
I don't think you need a whole fucking union, but I do think you need at least clarity and transparency with other players about the types of contracts that you're signing, what kind of clauses are in there, what kind of salary. That's very baseline. But whether or not this ever goes fully public, that might be down the road. It might not ever happen. I don't know why it's so taboo in esports to talk about money. It's always super fucking taboo and against the cultural norm in esports to talk about money, but there's 25 tweets about when Jacob Trouba signs a fucking 7x8 deal the other day. 7 years by $8 million, by the way, per year. That kind of shit in traditional sports is everywhere. The money is everywhere. The money is public, and that's kind of what the norm is, and that kind of makes a lot of sense, honestly. And it's a bit of a different structure because in traditional sports you pay your players differently versus in esports where you pay everyone the same on the team. In traditional sports you talk about the money because you talk about how much a player is worth compared to their value and then their contract. In esports you don't really bring up the last part, which is the contract. You only bring up their skill and their numbers and their performances at either LAN or online. For Dark Zero, I don't understand why people are so fucking pissed off about this contract, man. Like the comment said as well, we don't know what the fuck is in the contract. We don't know if there's player options. We don't know if there's org options. And
just on a side note, I don't want to cut you off. Also, that does not mean that you guys get to all get pissy and go, oh, this thing is so fucking wrong, blah, blah, blah. It is on every single one of those fucking men's backs to take that to a fucking lawyer and go, is this okay to sign? ESL hands us contracts for literally fucking everything. And if you don't think that I call my mother and go, I need our lawyer to look over this, you're fucking high. I'm not signing something if I don't know legally what they can fucking do with it. Okay? So don't sit here and go, oh, this is fucking ridiculous. I can't believe this. This is a fucking piss poor contract. If they didn't want to sign it, they wouldn't have fucking signed it. They are the only person that can put ink to paper and go, this is legally binding. Okay? So again, drop your fucking pitchforks. It's on them. It is not on Ubisoft or anyone else to make sure that they're not getting fucked. It is solely on them to go, hey, lawyer, is this okay to sign? Everything else, this price margin's good. And then, like we talked about earlier, to get into the pilot program, they have to show these bids. They have to show the contracts, everything to Ubi and go, this is what they're getting paid, blah, 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 blah. Everything else go down the line, right? So, again, everything is fine, okay? Don't freak out.
I think that the biggest issue I have with this contract is that 2 years is just too fucking long.
Oh, it's massive. That's a
long
time.
No. I'm on the other side of the fence here. In traditional sports, and even in some esports, term is everything. Term is what anyone ever fucking cares about is term. The salary, you go up 500 grand, you go down 500 grand a year, what the fuck ever. Term is everything. Term is security.
Yeah, keep in mind, Rob, the way that these teams drop players, like when you sign Jacob Trouba to, a 10-year contract, if you trade him, he's still on the same contract. If you buy him out, there's usually a clause in there as to how much money he makes. He's safe. The problem is that these 5 players and coach or coaches that have now been signed to this contract, they can probably be bought out at any time and they don't have any pay. Think about it. When a player gets dropped from a team, they don't get money. They don't get to see the rest of that contract. And you're right, we don't know what's in it. But let's say, for example, tomorrow, they drop Nyx. Does he still get paid every single month for the 2 years? The answer is probably not. The answer is that he probably gets maybe like a final month or two's of severance pay, which is usually unheard of in a lot of lower level esports. And I say lower level because we are not a tier 1 esport. There's no protection there for a lot of these players.
That's on the contract then.
Sure, but the problem is that, you're right, Sam, in that you can take it to a lawyer and get it revised. But the problem is that there's intense pressure on these players. They want to play. And at the end of the day, if the org turns around and is like, yeah, we're not making any of these changes, do you walk? No, you don't. You probably still sign it anyway because your option of walking means you're not going to play and not get paid at all. That could be the end of your career.
Mm-hmm. The contract.
So essentially in a rock and a hard place, though. And you're right. We don't know what's in this contract. We have no idea. But I know from most of the players that have been dropped from teams, if not all of them, they get paid their final month salary if they get dropped like in the middle of a month, and that's it. That's all they get. There's no insurance there for the players. These orgs dramatically benefit from these types of contracts. And you're right. You can take it to a lawyer, everything you want, sure. But at the end of the day, these are mostly kids that are trying to make it in an industry that they love and are passionate about. And it's not like normal sports where you have, possibly 20 years. You're looking at maybe a 4 or 5 year career tops. And then what? It's not like normal sports where you can transition to something else. A lot of these guys are getting dropped from teams at the ages of 24, 25, 26, and they're never getting back into pro league. So what do? Where do they go? They don't have high school. Some of them don't have high school diplomas. Most of them, an overwhelming majority of them, don't even have any university or college. So what do? They realize that if they don't sign this contract, they're going to go back to working minimum wage or have to go back to school. And nobody wants to do that after you've been living the high life of being an esports star.
Yeah.
Then that's definitely on the contract. Then that there's no clause, there's no safety for the player, and like you said, we don't know what's in the contract specifically. But if that's the precedent being set in esports, and that's a terrible fucking precedent, that should not be the norm. That should not be a situation. The there's two different contract precedents, I guess you could look at, which is either hockey, where everything's guaranteed no matter what.
Yeah, same with a lot of traditional sports. Yeah.
Yeah, where you sign the contract and it's locked in, and no matter fucking
Oh, wait,
what,
the
you're
whole-
getting
the
that
whole
money.
thing?
Whole thing.
The whole thing?
The whole thing
Okay,
is
so-
guaranteed the minute you
Okay, so
sign
not
it.
like not like comparative to football where there's a guaranteed amount, and then there's also like if you
That's-
fulfill the entire contract, this is what you get paid.
That's where I was going next.
Okay.
So you have those two precedents. You have either a hockey contract or a football contract, or there's baseball contracts that also don't have full guaranteed money. You got to start shaping the precedent inside of esports then to make sure there isn't a possibility to be predatory in your contract, to lock them down with term, but also have their signing rights held and not pay them. Like that's fucking insane. So yeah, unless I actually saw this contract and ripped it apart, I don't know which way to lean on it. But the fact that people are getting so mad about term, if this is this precedent, then that's a huge fucking problem. Players should have security in their money even after being released from a roster. And I'm not saying the whole fucking thing. In hockey, that's how it works, or unless you buy out the contract. In football, though, that's not the case. They do get released, but at least they get the guaranteed money they were promised. And it's up to them to sign that or renegotiate. And I know what you said. You said, there's no choice to walk away. A lot of these kids are young and this is their team and all that shit. But at some point then you got to look at the term and say, all right, if this is going to be 2 years, then am I really investing 2 years of my life in a safe place? Do I feel like they're going to fucking drop me on my head the next day? This is a situation where a 19 or 20-year-old, like Sam said, needs to go to a professional and say, overview this fucking contract. Let me know where my weaknesses are. And as a player, you probably look at expanding your options at that point. You got to start looking at other teams. You got to start looking at other orgs that will not literally bend you over on a deal. I don't know. There are other options. They're not pretty. There's leaving the team. There's going to a different team. There's signing a shorter term contract than your teammates. There's other options, but I don't know. I see a 2-year contract and I see an investment from an org that really looked into making Siege their home. Dark Zero came in and they were a brand new org with no founding in any other esport. This was going to be their home. And when I see a 2-year contract from Dark Zero, I think, yeah, this team is heavily invested into Siege, these individual players. They just made a roster change. They dropped Jarvis and picked up Hyper.
Yep.
Roster changes happen.
Yeah.
But when I look at Dark Zero, I see a team that wants to make Siege their home, and this is a statement play, and this is a lockdown of a team that's going to be good for a very long time and has been good for a very long time. I don't look at this as predatory, and maybe that's putting too much blind faith into a corporation that at the end of the day needs to make money. But I don't think that the pitchfork should come out when you see an investment like that. I think this is gonna turn out fine, and if there are issues that come up with it from a roster drop or a roster change, I expect the org to take care of the player in the best way possible. That obviously isn't going to cost them a shit ton of money because, like I said, it's a business. But whether it's selling the contract to a different team and you still keep that term, you still keep that salary, that's happened before. Whether you have a team come in and buy out the contract, at least release them. Don't keep their signing rights then. Don't keep them locked down. If another team is going to come in and make an offer, be at least courteous enough to say, yeah, you're an asset to another team. We don't think you fit with this team anymore, but we're going to release you in full. If this organization then turns around and starts holding players hostage after dropping them from the team, then I got a big fucking problem. But for right now, the org looks like they're going to take care of the player the best way that they can without dumping money into it, because they don't have to dump money into it. That's how the contract works.
I don't think that Dark Zero is a bad org by any stretch. I think, in fact, they might want to be one of the best. I've only heard great and glowing things from all of the team, and the love and care that Zach, their CEO, tends to give and show is next to none in comparison to everybody else. It's unparalleled. And yeah, I don't, at the end of the day, I don't view every contract and every organization with great skepticism or cynically, because you're right. They're corporations that are looking to make money. You know, they're not in this as a charitable endeavor, which also ties into the whole pilot program thing we talked about before. But realistically, like I worry for the players because in a lot of cases, esports doesn't have the infrastructure to help the players. There are no player unions with the exception of a couple occasions, and they're not exactly the strongest. They're pretty toothless overall, and it's just something that I think you have to keep in mind. If there's an org that's going to fuck over their players, I don't ever think that Dark Zero would be in that capacity in any way, shape, or form. But it's still something that you've always got to consider, I think. Just in a moment of self-preservation, I think every player needs to consider that.
That's fair.
Well, let's keep it moving on down then. And then just on a side note, I honestly do think that Dark Zero is aimed to be one of the best orgs. I mean, for me, they're a statement organization because they started in Siege. This is where obviously Zach wanted to start things, and he's doing things right. And he's showing a lot of these other organizations that have been doing it a lot longer how to do things. And it's good to see, man. It's good to see someone taking the path that's already been basically set by traditional sports on how to handle certain situations. Again, I actually tweeted this out when that got announced for their contract, that I really like that they had contract transparency. They're like, hey, this is a contract extension, blah blah blah. Granted, you know, it's not like what us three are used to, and traditional sports was like, hey, he's making this much money, this is how long, and this is his everything, here's his blood type, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know, we're getting there, and that's great. And somebody commented on it and was like, you know, I don't think that esports needs to be exactly like traditional sports. And it doesn't. That's not what Flynn and I are trying to push, guys. What we're trying to say is that there's already a roadmap. Traditional sports is exactly what is in the name. It's been around for a long fucking time, and they've figured out the right way to do things and wrong way to do things. And there's a lot of stuff to be learned from that. You can take the best things of traditional sports, like transparency with how players are being treated, everything, and transcribe that over into esports, and it works. It just has to be done. That's all. You just have to take that leap, and you got to do it. That's it for my last little bit on that. But okay, so next one from Canadian Milkbag. Hope things have been going well, buddy.
Just out of curiosity, how many of these are there? Because we're already at 2.5 hours.
I'll cut it down to one per, and then we'll be good.
So how many more, Sam?
1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, no. It'd be probably about 7.
You got to take off, Parker. Feel free. We usually do this for a long ass time with the fucking Q&As.
Plus, we've been fucking gone for a month, so
yeah. All right, what's the question?
Canadian Milkbag, since you know the scene so well, what do you think is the top T2 team in North America right now? I would say Leftovers. There's really nobody else that's impressive.
Yeah, I'd probably say Leftovers. Just the amount of experience on that team, and now they finally look like they're playing together and have actually been working on building strategies and building a framework for a team. Because when we played them in the quals, they were not great. But they've definitely made a lot of changes, roster changes as well. I think Leftovers are definitely the team to beat right now, looking at NACL. Everybody already knows my opinion with dropping Jeff for DG. I don't think that team's going to be all that hot with Yeti on support. We'll see what happens, but not looking too fondly over there at that camp, and Rise is pretty forgettable right now. I mean, it's going to take Tracken and Factor really actually carrying that team to have them make a difference. I think Leftovers is just the more complete team.
Mm-hmm. Parky?
Given the fact that you guys can go on these for quite a while, I'm just going to chime in if I have a differing opinion. If I don't say anything, then that's fine.
All right,
in this
cool.
case, yeah.
All right, let's blow through these then. All right,
Yep.
Next up is Mabiel. All right, so how on earth has LFO still not found an org to represent them? How probable is it that they get one before Raleigh? I would say, personally speaking, I guarantee you they're in talks with organizations. They're the second best team in Europe right now. Extremely competitive. They're going to all of the lands, and they're performing a lot better at the lands. Somebody wants their name plastered across them. There's only a couple things that I can think of as to why they don't have one. Either one, they're overpriced right now, and they're in talks to possibly have their, esteem knocked down a little bit to a more probable price, or They're just are in talks with quite a few orgs, and they're trying to just outbid each other. So I'll just see exactly what happens with that. But how probable is it that they get one before Raleigh? Extremely probable. Like somebody definitely wants their name across LFO at Raleigh.
Yeah, I wouldn't be at all shocked if they have an org for Raleigh. We saw this last year with IDK getting picked up by Secret right before Raleigh.
Paris.
Paris, yeah.
Yep.
Before the major, whatever, the fucking summer major, whatever the fucking city they put it in. Same with G2, actually. Didn't they release their org announcement right before Paris?
That's a Parky question. I don't know.
I think so. I'm not 100%.
Say that again.
Did G2 announce right before Paris, or was it before DreamHack Valencia?
It was right before Paris, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So yeah, we've had a couple of orgs come in already and say
they were still listed as Penta on on the stuff before Paris Major. Secret and G2 both announced like right before, and it was so sudden that it was like literally days before the event.
Yep.
They weren't even sure they were going to be able to get their jerseys on time, and I think a lot of them didn't even have their names on them because they couldn't get them.
And then they won it.
So. Yeah. And then they won. Smile.
I know for a fact that LFO have been approached by organizations, but I don't know if they're any good. I have not dug, and I actually don't know which organizations have spoken to them. I know that there are big orgs still looking. I don't know if they're looking at Europe. Europe's always been really weird for esports. It has never received the same love or attention from esports orgs. And, then you find situations like Astralis, for crying out loud, who literally need to make their own organization to actually get like some semblance of, representation.
Yeah.
Of course, the biggest French esport org is Vitality, but they've already got a team. And that team is not bad. So it's not like Vitality is going to bail on them and pick somebody else up. I would imagine that they're probably getting an org before Raleigh. Here's what I'll say. I have a feeling that they're probably going to get offered contracts prior to Raleigh. If they don't pick up an org and go into Raleigh as LFO, it's because the contracts they're getting are bad. I don't think it'll be because they don't have options. I think it's because they will realize, hey, these contracts suck. We're better than this. Let's wait it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be at all shocked if that is the case. We don't see them with representation in Raleigh, that it's definitely because the offers so far have not lived up to their expectations or their deserved needs.
Yep.
All right. Well, hop on to the next thing from Santos Games. This is a perfect question for this to lighten things up, because we've actually done a pretty good deep dive and analysis on a lot of shit on this episode, which is traditionally speaking, Flynn and I cover things and just poke fun at a lot of shit, which actually it's kind of a nice turn. It's actually good.
I'm swimming in sweat. It is 30 degrees in this house with no windows.
Just vape harder, idiot. All right. Santos Game asks, which one of you is the bigger fuck ass? You fucking fuck asses.
Definitely me.
Yeah. Well, you're the only one here that's homeless and also didn't have a job until like 2 weeks ago. So.
Fucking excuse you? I'll fucking hit you, bud. I was just waiting for Parker to jump in on the homeless.
Yep, I was just waiting. I'm just waiting for him. I'm waiting.
No, I have nothing to say.
Oh, you have nothing to say. Okay, yeah.
Really?
You could have had nothing to say on the desk yesterday, but
I'm trying to keep you relevant because you're not on it.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself. That clip was so fucking good.
Dude, it was so good. Dude, I didn't even know what was going on. Like, okay, so guys, we have a WhatsApp group that's literally just like Katowice casting couch, and it's like all the casters. And literally Flynn just like chimes in all of a sudden, like nothing's going on in chat. Flynn chimes in, he's like, fuck you, you fucking dickhead, or some shit along those lines. And I was like, what in the fuck is going on? And he just added Parker and Milos. I was like, what's going on? And he's like, they did an impression of me on the desk. And I was like, I need this clip in my life right now. And I just immediately went to Reddit. It was so great. So great. Anyways, next question comes from Bought It Out. We have two options here. I'll let you guys pick. It's either, what is the feeling of TSM? The whole leak situation has everyone wondering what's going on. More than likely, it's going to be Pojo, or they're going to keep Crusher. We don't know. Obviously, we're not attuned in TSM. We're not in talks with the team. Just to cover that up real quick. But I think that the better one of these two is going to be, is there a reason to worry with EG? They haven't been doing well generally with some important losses to teams they are competing against at land spot for.
I mean, is there a reason to worry about G2 because they don't do well in Pro League? Is there a reason to worry for anyone else who takes a couple L's in a BO1, no OT? Like, yeah, if you want to look at Milan in the finals there, then yeah, maybe there's some fucking cause for concern. Geo as well going on vacation in the middle of the season. As far as I know, that was pre-planned. That's just bad planning, I guess. Gosh, it's filled in fine, but hey. I don't know. I don't think there's too much to worry about with EG, man. They're always a performer at LAN. They'll make a run. I don't think there's anyone doubting that they'll make a run. It's just, hey, if they're in that grand final spot again, are they going to get 3-0'd again? Or are they going to be up, what was it, like 6-4, 6-3, ready to close out Milan and then throw it away? Like, I love EG, but holy fuck, do they toy with your emotions. I think they'll be fine, though.
Oh, yes. It's like chaos, dude. It's literally like chaos where you're just like, I have no idea what in the fuck they're going to do. But, all right. So we'll hop into the next one, which is from Lord Monochrona. How did you both get into casting? How would you suggest someone who's curious about trying casting starts? I apologize if you've answered this before. I only started listening towards the end of season 9. It's all good, Lord. It's all good. We've answered this enough times where Flynn and I both have this rudimentary down and how to get through it quickly. So I guess I'll start and then we'll just go on down the line. So I got started casting because I just really, really liked, I really, really like talking over things and, you know, making moments of things. I just thought it was a really cool thing. I did it for friends scrims and just like, I thought it was really cool to add a voice over like friends clips and stuff like that, as well as just, you know, I've always liked debate and always liked public speaking. I've just always been that guy. So all of a sudden I just started getting into that on Xbox, just doing it over friends scrims. Started with like a super, super, super small tournament organizer that I honestly can't even remember the fucking name of. I'm not even going to lie to you. It was on Xbox. I casted like one thing for them. And then I continued casting Xbox stuff, especially after Pro League left Xbox. That was really when things started picking up for me, because then all of a sudden I was the best caster on Xbox because there was nobody else that did it. So I was casting like R6 TV League, GEL, and some other stuff. And all of a sudden I got my PC because I've always wanted a PC so I could stream. Then I started casting all that stuff on PC. Sternab saw one of them, started casting with Sternab. Then Parker saw me casting with Sternab, messaged me, was like, hey, this is how not to be a fuck ass. You're really good at this, and this is what you're not good at. Work on the stuff you're not good at. Continue working on the stuff you are good at, because obviously improvement's always good, blah, blah, blah. I start casting CCS, then I start casting Challenger League, all within like the same month. And then 2 months later, I'm casting United States National Finals in Las Vegas, Nevada with Parker, and then the rest is history. That is how I got into casting.
I was an idiot yelling on the internet, and then I sent the video of me yelling on the internet to Parker. Then he sent me a fucking essay about how I'm an idiot, and now I'm here. That's my casting history. How to get into casting. Just do it. I don't know why this is such a fucking hard thing for, like, all of us just one day just fucking did it. We just decided, hey, this could be fun, and then we fucking did it. Like, just go.
I think it's because we all really like traditional sports as well. Like, we're just like, oh, you know, like there's a guy that talks over stuff and he makes stuff sound good. And he's there for the exciting moments.
Just go find any amateur league. Go on Reddit, and there's this one dude is posting every single fucking day about his goddamn amateur league in Siege. Who the fuck? Why? We get it. We've seen the post 5 times. Enough. Anyway, go hit him up.
Cast that shit.
Yeah, go hit him up. Be like, hey, I want to cast your league that you keep advertising every single fucking day over and over again. Go ask him. Go ask an amateur league. Go ask, I don't know. Literally just record yourself talking over a Pro League VOD and send it to ESL for Community Caster. They'll probably give it to you. It is not hard to get a Community Caster spot.
Yeah, BK doesn't give a fuck. He'll literally give a snail like a fucking community.
You want to know how to get into casting? Stop sitting on your ass and just do it. Just do it. It's like anything in life. Do you want to do it? Stop sitting and typing on a computer. Just go do it.
Well, yeah, instead sit in a chair and talking to Mike, idiot. Duh.
Yeah.
Parker?
I think the bigger issue is that people want to cast for a variety of reasons because they want to be involved in esports and they think that maybe casting is the way to do it. And, I'll say that Rainbow Six is still at a point where we don't have enough casters. We really, really don't. This Raleigh quals that just came up, there were so many open games that just did not get casted. And it's because we just don't have enough casters. And, Rainbow Six is tough to cast because you can only have one person in the game. So usually you're solo casting. Casting with somebody else is tough because usually then you have to have, somebody screen sharing or maybe getting a clean feed, which is never always convenient and always requires a lot of work. So there's already a barrier of entry rather than if you're casting a game like CSGO or Overwatch where there's multiple spectator slots. So that's tough right there. So I think when people ask, like, how do I get into casting? The problem is that I think a lot of people don't want to do the work. You're right. On the Rainbow Six Pro League subreddit, there's multiple people who will post like, my Xbox league is looking for casters. This amateur league is looking for casters. But the problem is that these people don't want to cast some random fly-by-night league with a team that nobody's ever heard of in their bedroom to 3 people. And that's what a lot of these leagues get. A lot of these leagues don't advertise. They just kind of exist. The teams that are playing in them don't have any traction or any clout or any pull. The people who are organizing them are very small, and they don't know how to do the work to get it there. First league I ever cast was the Siege Contender Series. We had like 3 viewers for most of it. It wasn't until like the second match when like the rest of the teams had stopped playing and they started tuning in that we jumped to like 10 viewers. Like, where do you think I started from? Where do you think most people started from? I casted the Siege Contender Series a couple times, and word traveled pretty quickly that I happened to be decent at it. And then from there, I cast an event with Remorse. He's a former pro player, and there's an ESL admin whose name is Vets, who's in the chat watching it because he's good friends with him, with Remorse. It's on Remorse's channel, and he tunes in and he says, hey, that's not bad. And then I cast an event for Powerhouse and it gets like 50 viewers, which is pretty goddamn good for, somebody who doesn't really cast. And there's people playing in it who happen to be affiliated with CCS. All of these things happened because I took an opportunity to cast small events where nobody was watching. When Remorse and I were casting that one event, there was like 30 people watching. Siege Contender Series were under 10 people watching. That Powerhouse event where I got noticed by CCS, under 50 people. And the next thing you know, I catch CCS. And this is back in the days of where CCS would get 80 to 110 views. Mm-hmm. It was not the juggernaut it is now where CCS goes live and it gets 500 to 1,000 views, depending on who's playing. This was back when CCS got 80 views. And Emzo and I are casting, my very first cast in CCS was Emzo and I, if I remember correctly. And it was like just a bunch of random teams that have like guys on it that are like not even really affiliated with the scene anymore. You got to start somewhere. The problem is that a lot of people see where our scene is now and see how big a lot of the casters are and how big a lot of the players are now. And they don't want to put in the work at the lower level, and they need to. I started casting to 3 people. You have to do the same. Get used to it. Put in the work, and if you're good, you'll rise quickly.
Yeah, like literally, legitimately, guys, just to build off that for just a second. When the game that Parker messaged me on was being broadcasted on Cernab's channel to 52 people, and just one of them happened to be Interrobang at the time. And it was literally, I remember it was a consulate game, and I remember the exact message that he sent me was talking about how I broke down how they were using Buck's utility with the skeleton key to break above the projector wall so he could nade over and kill the smoke that usually sits by the little like turned over love seat. So, like you never know, dude. You could say the right thing at the right time. Somebody messaged you, and then all of a sudden, you got like a small blimp on the radar, and all of a sudden it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you live in Poland. You just don't fucking know, just do it with the right intentions. Do it because it's fun. Do it because you love it. I mean, I think that's everyone says that every time that they get to some point like this. Just fucking do it, man. If you want to do it, go do it. Just don't be a fucking pussy. Like, I'm so serious, man, because that's at the end of the day, like you can't sit there and be like, I really wish I did that one day. Like, why do you think fucking Flynn's playing right now? Because Flynn doesn't want to look back and go, I never gave that a fucking shot. Just fucking do it. Yep. Like, sometimes you just gotta fucking do it, and you might suck. And actually, no, you're going to fucking suck. You're going to suck. No one starts anything in life and it's just amazing. It's not gonna happen. Okay, so just do your shit. Work on yourself. Be your biggest critic. and go through with it. All right. So if you want to do it, just do it.
We all
next
blew
thing,
ass in the beginning. Get ready to
Yeah.
blow as much ass or more ass than all of us combined. Just do it.
and let me tell you, Flynn blew a lot of ass.
A lot of ass. I am
There's been a
an
lot
ass
of-
blowing expert.
there was a lot of ass blowing, 100%. English Jesus just says, no question. Just thanks for doing the podcast. I miss and love you guys. We miss and love you too, English. All right.
All right,
so
last
next
question.
one-
Last question.
Last one?
It's
Last
2.5,
one? Okay, hold on.
dude. Like, I know we wanted to do a big one for
I
coming
know.
back. It's 2.5.
I know.
I need food. I'm dying.
You know what? We're just gonna do this. I think this is a perfect wrap up, especially with Parker here. James Milo, something like that. I apologize if I butchered your name. What is each of your best shoutcast moments? Like, what is your personal best shoutcast moment?
I don't fucking know.
What is your favorite shoutcast moment of your own? Or like the one that was the biggest?
The one that was the biggest, like in terms of like how much the match meant, was the final call on Coast between Nora and Empire at SI. I don't know. My best call? I don't fucking know, dude.
I think my favorite call of yours is definitely the Hungry ASM border.
Really? I butchered that. I like got stopped up when he went in through he went through mini office, and I was like, words, they're hard.
Literally me, dude. Like, shoutcasting's so hard, guys. Like, you don't even realize, like, being able to do like feed information and everything else without being at like a super face level while also talking fast enough to keep on like on top of everything is so fucking hard. And like, I'm just now getting the grasp of it, but holy shit, did I have to blow a lot of ass to even get to this point? My fucking Christ, man.
One of my favorite calls. It's not even particularly good because I like was just saying random shit for the sake of saying random fucking shit. But it was DreamHack Montreal. It was Cloud9 against Millennium at the time. That's Rec against LFO for anyone not been around that long. And fucking what's his face? I can't even remember who was attacking and who was defending, but it was on Villa, and there was a plant down by the statue, by Trophy Statuary bomb site, and it was what? This was back when it was 5 rounds a half.
Yeah.
So it was 7. No, it was 6-6 in overtime. First to 7 in overtime 1. This was the last possible round of the game, and fucking, I think it's Retro on Castle. He's just like, he's sticking the defuse, and fucking Hicks is in like the walk-in closet, and he's trying to sprint over and stop Retro from defusing. I don't know. It was a fucking stupid ass call. At one point I mentioned that Hicks had a holographic sight on instead of an ACOG in the middle of a play-by-play call. I'm like, what the fuck am I saying? I look back on that and I'm like, Flynn, did you hit your head before walking into the stadium or something? Like, are you good, bro? But yeah, I think that was probably like one of my favorite ones, just because it was my first ESL event and there was a lot of intensity behind it. Yeah, outside of that, like the EG Rec game on main stage at SI was big for me. Just because it was EG at SI, kind of where it all began the year before. Yeah. Other calls, I mean, yeah, they all kind of blend together after some time.
Parker.
The one that most people always reference to me isn't even necessarily one that I think is the best, but it's just one that always people like to bring up, was the very first call I ever made. So I guess I peaked in season 6. In Sao Paulo was when Ents won. I said, you call them Ents, we call them champions, or something like that. And I don't know why people just really like that one, and they reference it an awful lot. I usually try to write like a good ending to a matchup, like, when Penta won at the Invitational in 2018, I was like, they're often known as the best team in the world, but they've never had that distinction until today. Yeah, I think that's fair, but it's just like, I don't know. I think the Ents one was probably the best. I feel like while my casting has really improved over when I first started, I haven't necessarily had those like iconic calls or anything like that. Though people have clipped things and said it and put it in,
I don't think any of us have had like a truly like iconic call. I think your SI-18 is very iconic just because of the nature of the game.
Yeah, it's the best match ever that we've seen. And I really wish that it was to happen like now, because I struggle to go back and rewatch it because I just hear so much from my casting that I hate.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely hate.
Oh, dude, you have no idea.
Like, I can't go back and like listen to the things that I'm saying and all that jazz. And I'm just like, this sounds dreadful. Yep. This is so bad.
Yep. I guess, I mean, two of my calls have esports awards, so I guess that's kind of cool. Like, and they're both ones that like I kind of botched, but one of them I was literally fucking speechless, and I was with Flynn for that one, which was really cool. But the first one was C9 at the United States Nationals when Laxton got a 4K on Garage, attacking Garage. He literally just like held down the entire site by himself. Like it was post plant situation. He's on the left hand side of the garage door and just starts fucking wrecking house with an LED5. And it was very, very impressive.
I just want to point out, because I'm a complete dickhead, I just want to point out that neither of those calls got esports awards for good calls. They just got them for good plays.
Oh no!
And I just wanted to rub that in a little bit. So go fuck yourself.
They don't give those, and they would definitely not give it to me. Like my shoutcasting is still something that needs work. All right, but the other one was the young 1v4 on border that just happened in Milan. And legitimately the reason that I freaked out, you can ask Flynn, like I was like standing up on the chair.
Yeah,
like,
he was.
Like Flynn looked over at me and he's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, are you okay? Are you going to be okay?
I was not okay. I was literally speechless. Like that's literally why I was like, what in God's name was that? Because I had no idea what even to say at that point. I was like, that's fucking insane that FaZe literally not only threw that so hard, but Young was able to capitalize on every single one of those kills. And by the way, Flynn, because I remember you told me you're like, yeah, like the last remaining member, which was Zofia on FaZe, who peaked last, obviously. She had pretty low health. Dude, she was at 55 HP. So like the RNG really? On that, the RNG on that spread of the N590 for the last kill, because there was even a shield in front of her, a deployable shield. The RNG of that spread is fucking ridiculous that that even happened. So like, again, that's exactly why like I just like lost my shit, because I was like, I have no idea. That doesn't like physics. Hello? Like, please? What the fuck just happened? So that's yeah, I would say of all of the ones that I'm just like, holy shit, like it was definitely the young 1v4, because like Flynn even gave me that because like neither of us thought anything was going to happen. Like I was already if you go back and listen to that clip, like I'm already going into an analysis and like what they fucked up, blah, blah, blah. And then Young's just like, nope, fuck it. Like
I handed it off because there was like nothing going on. It was a 1v4 and they were being really slow about it too. They were being careful about it. And I was just like, all right, this is fucking pointless. I've been going for like a minute straight. Get me off this shit. So I just handed it to you. I'm like, all right, you're going to wrap it up. You start wrapping it up. And all of a sudden it just turns into fucking one of the greatest plays of the entire weekend.
Yeah, my RNG on plays is pretty good, huh?
Nailed it.
Just need to get better at not botching the shoutcasting, right? All right. Well, guys,
that's it.
It's coming to the sad point.
We did it, though. We did it.
Hey, you're on outro, bitch boy.
I'm on outro? All right. Well, I'd like to thank Parker for coming by and being a dumbass with us for nearly 3 hours, by the way. It's been fun. It's good to be back. The podcast will be more regular. Just understand that, like, we have things going on in our lives that will prevent us from making it, like, every Sunday or every Saturday. It might come out on a Thursday. It might come out on a Saturday. It might come out on a Tuesday. But we will aim to get one a week. But like my schedule for the next month and a half is just fucking insane. I'm going to be like on solid ground almost as much as I'm going to be up in the air. So understand that schedules will be difficult, but we will try our hardest, and it is back in full force. Thank you, Parker.
Can't wait for 6 people to listen to this.
Yeah, it's going to be great. That's going to wrap it up, though. This is the B-Leaguers podcast brought to you by the Koyo Store. Head to thekoyostore.com and use code all caps B-Leaguers for 5% off any order for anything. Get your Ubisoft officially licensed paraphernalia and even some Game of Thrones pins. And use our affiliate link. We will be back.
Propaganda. It's all
Propaganda. Yeah, it's propaganda. We will be back possibly next Friday. Saturday and Sunday I'm working, and Friday might be tough. So we don't even know when we're back next week. But
I'll be home and on your time, so whenever you want to do it.
All right, we'll sort that out behind the scenes then. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Parker, again, for stopping by, you stupid fuck ass. Stop mocking me on the desk, you little whore bag. And, thank you. See you later.